My parents are tricking me into giving up my car so that my brother can have it, as they're trying to make me believe that my car is broken beyond repair, thus forcing me to drop thousands of dollars to get a new car just so my brother can have my car. And now I'm just so confused by this entire situation because it really feels like they're trying to pull one over on me. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk, the only show on the internet where, yeah, you can find out real quickly just how bad someone else's parents can be. And the parents in this first story are obnoxious. They're so rude, they're so condescending, and they're clearly trying to pull one over on the original poster. So if you haven't already, subscribe to Am I the Jerk, click the bell to turn on notifications, snuggle into your favorite blanket, grab some popcorn, and let's get started. Okay, I really feel like I'm at my breaking point right now, and I just don't know where to go with this. I'm a 21-year-old female, and my parents have always had clear favoritism towards my brother his entire life. My brother is 17 years old, and the only explanation that makes sense is that he's their only biological kid. And for reference, I live with my biological mom and my stepdad. Well, yesterday my car broke down. I asked my parents to come help before I called a tow truck because my car wouldn't move. And I thought, okay, maybe it's something simple. But my God, it definitely wasn't. My car started smoking while I was driving, and eventually I paid $160 for a tow, and I had it taken to my dad's buddy's shop. But guess what? They literally won't tell me what's wrong with the car. My dad then immediately asked me how much money I had saved, and then said that I was gonna need a new car. Now, I kept asking what the issue was, because before the tow, I crawled under my car looking for anything broken or abnormal, and I literally saw nothing. But suddenly, he's telling me something is hanging and broken, but he wouldn't show it to me. When we dropped the car off, he jokingly told his buddy that I destroyed my car, and it honestly didn't feel like a joke. And if I'm being completely honest, at this point, I still don't know what's wrong with the car. All I know is that the rear tires had to be manually unlocked because somehow my parking brake turned on by itself without me pushing the button. We leave the shop, and my parents immediately start telling me that I have to buy a new car. They start showing me older cars that were back in the 2000s, even though I'm currently driving a 2017 Titanium Escape. I then asked them, well, what about my car? And it's here that they said they would fix it up and then give it to my brother. Plus, my dad feels entitled to this decision because it's his money now all of a sudden, because I get paid to go to school because my dad got 100% disability from the military. And holy crap, at this point, I lost it. I worked my butt off for 3 years for that car, working 2 waitressing jobs. They used that excuse that my dad got extra pay from the government shutdown and put $6,000 towards paying off my car all the time, which is the only reason they refused to put the car in my name. And trust me, that's a whole other story in and of itself. It honestly feels like they let me have the car just long enough for me to pay for everything, and now that something major happened, they want to fix it and hand it to my brother while forcing me into buying another car. And mind you, my brother is a lazy piece of crap. He's never had a job. All he does is play video games, he never helps out around the house, he eats everything, and he can barely even pass high school. They can't even trust him to wake up on time or even get on the bus. The whole situation makes me feel cornered and really stressed out. My parents keep insisting on paying for repairs on my current car because I had small issues that I ignored, like my seat motor being blown so the driver's seat doesn't move, or something that just makes the car more eco-friendly but doesn't affect driving. They insist that all of that needs to be fixed, and then immediately starts talking about buying me a new car. I feel like they're taking advantage of the fact that I worked hard for my stuff. I've been job hunting for months and trying to save so my boyfriend and I can move out. But now my dad's saying that any new car has got to be in his name again, and I'm scared the same thing will happen all over again. They also use the excuse that I have it easier because I'm a woman, and my brother supposedly has it harder because he's a man, which honestly makes no sense. So honestly, am I overreacting here? Am I really obligated to do all these things for my parents? Or am I onto something with thinking my parents are using this situation to favor my brother? Because right now, I really just don't know what to do. Oh my God, get out of there, dude. You gotta move out. You have to move out. Listen to me. If you get another car, you make sure it's in your name, not your dad's. Screw your dad, screw your parents. All these people suck. Because bro, you cracked the code. That's exactly what's going on. They're using this situation against you in a way that only favors your brother. That's why this car was in your dad's name. That's why they're suddenly claiming it after you've already paid for everything. These people are straight up using you. And that is obnoxious and it is completely unfair. So if I was in your shoes, not only would I not be getting a a car in your dad's name again, which by the way, screw that guy. Like never again would I ever trust him. But also I would be looking for like another place to live. I'm not even kidding. And I don't just say that. Like if you're living with your parents and they're treating you this way, then holy crap, it's time to get out of there while you can. These people are going to squeeze every penny out of you that they can while they've got you under their roof. And they're going to use that excuse about your dad being out of work or like being in the military or whatever it is pretty much all the time. Like I could see that as a consistent thing pretty much across the board with these people. Like let's be honest here. And that sounds obnoxious. I would hate dealing with these kind of people. So for me, the order of operations would be to say, okay, if you're taking the car, I'm never paying for anything for it ever again. It's not in my name, so congratulations, it's all yours. Secondly, if I really need a car to get around where I live, instead of like public transportation or something like that, then I would literally start looking for a car that you can put in your name. Like you're old enough to have your own car. This is not a scenario where it's like, oh, I had to have my dad's help. Like screw that. I would find help from just about anybody else if you needed it, or if you have the money, just do it yourself, dude. But no one else's name should be anywhere near it. Not your dad, not your mom, not your brother, nobody. Because this is seriously toxic. This is so messed up. But most of all, I would be looking for a new place to live. Even if they need roommates, even if it's in a crap situation, I would get out of there. Like anything's better than this. This sounds like a nightmare. So hopefully you get this worked out. Hopefully it kind of like sorts itself out in some kind of way, because your parents sound like terrible people and I would hate having to deal with them on a daily basis. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. My roommate is absolutely obsessed with losing weight, but it's gotten to the point where she's now using me as an example of how skinny she wants to be online to an extent that's making me incredibly uncomfortable. Because after I snapped at her when she did it one too many times, she's now devastated, with pretty much all of my friends siding with her, saying that the way I talked to her was cruel and very unnecessary, even though I really don't think it was. Because right now I'm not sure if I'm the jerk or not, and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so my roommate's been posting her weight loss journey on social media, and I've become increasingly uncomfortable because she keeps making my body part of her content. For a bit of context, I'm 5'7" and around 110 pounds, and I seriously have always struggled to keep weight on. If I don't intentionally eat more, then I feel full, and I tend to drop closer to 105, which is stressful and physically tiring for me. I'm giving these details only because my body has become part of the issue. I really don't think my body should be used as someone else's public comparison point, weight loss goal, or surgery reference. Now, she has started to say online that part of why she started losing weight was because she felt so big next to her roommate, which by the way, that's me she's talking about. She also said that a guy she brought home was looking at me the next morning instead of her, and that already made me uncomfortable, but I didn't say anything at first. Now, we have designated fridge and pantry shelves in our living space, and because I'm trying to maintain and gain weight, I keep higher calorie foods around, stuff like avocado, ribeye, full-fat yogurt, oils, desserts, etc. But when I do this, she's yelled at me in the past for being unsupportive because of the food on my shelves being like a temptation for her. So to try and like keep the peace, I bought opaque containers and I put all my food in those. I have talked to her before and asked her to stop, but she said she read that it was good to have a real life goal instead of a celebrity. And she did say she'll stop the online posts, but in real life, she didn't stop. There was also a post where she said she was considering a boob job. She actually took one of my bras from the laundry and showed it in the video. She read out my bra size and the brand from the label, commented on the bra design, and even put it on herself. She also showed 2 photos of me with my face censored but my body visible. She repeatedly commented on my waist, my chest, my thighs, and even like drew lines on the photos. And holy crap, I felt incredibly violated. Even with my face censored, that was still my body, my underwear, and my private information being used as content. I also felt like my body was like being publicly evaluated, but I didn't want to like comment publicly because I don't want to identify myself. A couple days ago, we were at a mutual friend's get-together, and she refused to eat cake someone made because she said it would make her fat, and basically justifying it by saying that she wasn't me, who just eats anything that I want all the time. Well, at this point, I finally snapped. I said something like, "You're never going to be me. You'll never be as skinny, and you'll just end up with like an eating disorder and tons of plastic surgery because you'll never have my natural waist or my chest." Now, I know that was harsh, but I also didn't think that I snapped out of nowhere. When I said this, she started crying, and some people even said that I was being cruel and unsupportive, but I said, okay, then she should stop posting about me on social media. But some people still defended her, saying that she should be able to have like body goals and post about body positivity. Some of her friends have even direct messaged me about being so cruel, so now I'm honestly not so sure. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because I really don't know what to do. Okay, I hate all of your friends. I just gotta be honest. I hate your roommate. I hate anybody defending your roommate. Like, all of these people suck. Because holy crap, dude, if you think about this situation too much, it becomes very creepy very fast. Because the way she's acting is unacceptable. If your roommate wants to lose weight and she's like, man, I'm really motivated and I want to do my best, then that process needs to be a personal one. She's gotta hit the gym, she's gotta eat less and move more. What she shouldn't be doing is using you as some kind of pawn of like, oh man, this is my friend and I want to look like her, where she's basically using you as a prop in her own like weight loss journey and like content creation, even though you never agreed to any of that. Like, just imagine if you flipped the script and said, wow, I really need to gain weight. Just look at my fat roommate over here. I don't want to be this big, but look how big she is. Like, I can guarantee you she would not take that well. She would probably lose her mind and be like, I can't believe you put me on blast like that. I don't feel comfortable with you like sharing my body online, because that's literally what she's doing to you. I don't care if you match her like ideal sense of self where it's like, oh, I want to be this skinny. Her sharing and wearing your bra on like some video and showing pictures of you even if your face is blurred out. Like, dude, what are we doing right now? This is so weird. It's such a weird obsession. Like, it's really creepy and inappropriate. Like, good lord. So no, you're not the jerk. Dude, I would literally move out tomorrow. I would break lease and be like, I'm out of here. Because your roommate is like 5 steps away from being like, I want to wear your skin. And I would rather get out of there now than have to deal with that later on. My best friend has been lying for years that she's allergic to milk, but after watching her eat dairy products all the time at home, I finally decided to, in a roundabout way, call her out on this, which caused her to storm off in a way I have not seen before. And at this point, I just don't know if I made a mistake or not. Here's what happened. For a bit of backstory, me and my best friend are 18-year-old females, and ever since elementary school, we've been really good friends. I also have diagnosed celiac disease ever since I was 11. It's a severe autoimmune condition, which means I have to avoid gluten and products that may contain gluten at all costs. And as a pre-warning, I absolutely love my best friend and always will. Now, it all started out when we were 15 years old, and I started having complications in relation to my celiac disease. I had been out of school for about a week after being in a hospital on drips and IVs, and the next week, my friend randomly decided that she was lactose intolerant without a doctor diagnosing it or even visiting a doctor. She told all of our other friends that she had been to a doctor, but told me that she just wanted to tell them as a joke. I remember feeling a bit rubbed in the wrong way, and I explained to her that that's a bit odd, but didn't really go any deeper into it from there. And literally, as this whole story happens, she remains eating dairy products at home. As time went on, when we went on school trips and camps together, she would go down as lactose intolerant, and obviously I would have to have gluten-free foods. What rubs me the wrong way now is that she just expects to have dairy-free food options at camps and school trips, and whenever there isn't enough options for her undiagnosed dietary requirements, it's always a problem. However, like I said, she still continues to eat dairy at home. I also feel like it takes away from the severity of my needs as we sort of come as a pair. However, over spring break, me and my boyfriend and herself and her boyfriend decided to take a camping trip. Now, long story short, I offered to provide the snacks and meals for everybody, and I just thought to myself, well, why should I buy her dairy-free products while she clearly eats dairy at home? Well, cut to the first night of camping, and we got down to eat a meal of spaghetti, and she turned around and said, do you have any dairy-free cheese? And I just said to her, no, why would I bring dairy-free cheese? You eat it at home all the time. Well, long story short, in the end, she and her boyfriend stormed off. And I seriously just find it all really bizarre, but I really just don't understand. Like, am I seriously the jerk in this situation for not like giving in to her fake dietary needs? Because right now, I just don't know what else to do. Okay, someone in the comment section put it down perfectly. For starters, she's pissed off that you called her out on something she knows for a fact she's lying about. Because as someone who really is lactose intolerant and my tummy gets a rumbling if I have milk, like, dude, you don't want this. Seriously, this sucks. This is the worst thing ever. I've got to take a pill anytime I want to, like, I don't know, enjoy ice cream. And even then, we can't guarantee I won't have stomach cramps. So for her to be faking that is just stupid. Like, why would you want that? But the real reason that somebody said is like, oh yeah, she's mad because you called her out, but there's a really good chance that her boyfriend probably doesn't know that this is a complete lie. She probably lied to her boyfriend and said, yeah, I'm lactose intolerant as well, so we need to eat stuff that doesn't have dairy in it. So when you didn't bring non-dairy stuff, she was probably like, like, oh, I can't believe you would expose me like that. But if I'm being completely honest, like, why wouldn't you? She's lying for attention. She literally is doing this just so she can like be like you. She probably saw all the attention you got after you were in the hospital for a week, and she's like, oh, I want that as well. So now I'm lactose intolerant so I can look like I'm suffering. Like, holy crap, what a weirdo. Like, this is such a weird thing to keep up for this many years. So no, you're not the jerk for not catering to someone's like make-believe dietary needs. It's super obnoxious that she's acting like this, and I would not want to put up with that if I was in your shoes. Am I the jerk for asking my boyfriend's dad to leave my house after we got into a fight over one of the dumbest reasons on planet Earth? Because this guy screamed at me in a way that I really didn't expect, and it's kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, especially considering the fact that my boyfriend did nothing to defend me, which has me really set on edge, and it's made me start to question everything about our relationship. Here's what's currently happening. I'm a 28-year-old female, and recently I bought my first house. It is older and it could use some cosmetic updates, but it's completely move-in ready and was actually priced significantly lower than comparable homes in the area, which is a big reason why I bought it. From the very beginning, my boyfriend's dad has been pretty negative about the house. He repeatedly told me that I overpaid, implied that I was stupid for buying a house that needed so much work, and generally just made comments that rubbed me the wrong way. Well, recently they were both over at the house, and at one point I went into the bathroom and I noticed the toilet seat had been left up. So I came out and jokingly said, okay, which one of you left the toilet seat up? And although I did mean it as in like, why did you do this? I really meant for it to sound like I was teasing or ribbing, kind of like how guys joke with each other. Well, his dad kind of laughed and ignored me at first. Then a few minutes later, I brought it up again and I said, okay, seriously though, please put the toilet seat down next time. And when I said this, he just refused. We then went back and forth a few more times, and every time he refused. And then he started making comments about how I was stupid for not knowing how to use a toilet seat because I could just put the seat down myself. He also implied that it was my job as a woman to do it. And holy crap, at that point, things escalated. And I will fully admit that after being mocked and refused in this way, I did get an edge in my voice and I raised it some because I was frustrated that a simple request in my own home was being turned into a huge issue. Finally, I calmly said, okay, I would like for you to leave now. And at that point, he stormed out. He slammed the door and he yelled, don't ask me for a single thing. He then got in his truck and he peeled out of the neighborhood. But the part that really upset me the most was my boyfriend's reaction. He said absolutely nothing during any of this. He didn't defend me. He didn't tell his dad to calm down. Didn't say those comments were inappropriate, like literally nothing. Afterwards, he completely dismissed my feelings and kept saying it's just a toilet seat. But I repeatedly tried explaining that it was never actually about the toilet seat. Instead, it was about being mocked and disrespected in my own home, after a simple request, not to mention his awful comments towards women, and feeling unsupported by my boyfriend while someone spoke to me like that. My boyfriend says his dad felt disrespected by the way I initially called him out, and he thinks that I escalated things unnecessarily, and I can totally understand that my wording and my tone may not have landed the way I intended, and I did acknowledge that later. But then my boyfriend also told me that afterwards, his dad told him that he needed to keep his woman in line, and my boyfriend admitted that he said nothing in response to that either, because he didn't want to escalate things. I still feel like the actual issue is being ignored, and now my boyfriend thinks I'm massively overreacting and making drama over just a toilet seat. Meanwhile, I feel like this situation revealed a much bigger issue in our relationship. So am I the jerk here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, people in the comment section are saying the exact same thing I'm about to say, but holy crap, this is a preview into the way your boyfriend's gonna act during your marriage. Seriously, bro, this is super obnoxious if you ask me. First of all, what you were saying is not that big of a deal. All he had to do was be like, oh yeah, it was me, sorry about that, I'll put the toilet seat back up, in your house. So for the dad to suddenly be like, oh, that's a woman's job, I don't have to do that. You're too stupid to figure it out, aren't you? Like, dude, we went from 0 to like 15 in like 2 seconds, bro. It is not that deep, and honestly, I think what's really going on here is the fact that this guy's being corrected by a woman. He's obviously sexist, like I hate to say it, but that's the truth. Your boyfriend's dad hates you because you're a woman, like there's no other way of putting it. And the fact that you corrected him in a home that he doesn't own, in a position where he has less power than you, probably is the reason why he got set off, which is such a stupid rationale, but I really think that's what's going on here. Like that's also probably why he said you're stupid for buying a house. If it was up to your boyfriend's dad, his son would be the only person owning a house, with it only being in his his name, and you would just be like a kitchen wife or something. Like, this is so weird. Like, all of his comments kind of point in that direction where it's like, what? A woman owning a house before my son? I can't believe it. And it's like, dude, what are we talking about? This is not that big of a deal. You should be happy that your son has a place to live. Like, what's the issue here? So for me, it's incredibly alarming that your boyfriend is not standing up to his dad, even just a little bit, which also kind of indicates that this probably happens way more often than you realize. Like, think about it. This is probably what your boyfriend grew up in, meaning that his dad treats his mom like crap. And I'm not saying that your boyfriend's gonna try and treat you like that at some point, but it's kind of weird because he's already exhibiting like small versions of that kind of mentality already. And that sucks. Like, that really sucks in my opinion. Him staying quiet like that and almost dismissing his father's behavior means that he's been apologizing for that man probably his whole life. Like, I know I've seen that in my own friends, like in real life, where I'm like, why are you even accepting this behavior? This is so weird. And their only rationale is to try and like excuse it in some way, and that is so weird. Like, that doesn't make any sense. At least stand up for yourself. Like, do yourself that favor. So yeah, this whole situation sucks. It really is a preview into the way your boyfriend's gonna act. Even if that means he's just like a passive version of his father, that would still be a nightmare to live with, and I would never want to put up with that. My entitled family demands that I hand over my lottery ticket winnings after I win $25,000 during our family's Christmas white elephant gift exchange. But after the way they treated me and the way they freaked out on me and called me selfish for not giving them more money, I decided to keep everything to myself. And now I'm worried that I may have destroyed my relationship with my family because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, the recent family Christmas party was at my house this year and about 25 people showed up. The traditional game this year was White Elephant. My family plays the dice version with some house rules for context. Anyone who doesn't have a gift by the end of the game will receive $10 as a gift. Also, trading gifts is allowed, only with a $10 consolation gift. The game had a total of about 40 gifts. I ended the game with 4 gifts, and 4 family members ended with none. My gifts were a space heater, windshield wipers, a 20-pound gummy bear, and a $50 Starbucks gift card. Of the 4 people without a gift, 3 of them got rejected, meaning only 1 trade was made. My cousin ended with $50 worth of lottery tickets, but assumed they'd be worth nothing and I don't go to Starbucks. Now, we couldn't trade because of the rules above and argued that the gift cards and the lottery tickets had a numerical value, just like the $10 gifts, so they should be tradable. Well, the family agreed and more gift cards were exchanged, and this will be important later on. Trading ended and people began using their gifts, so I went to put my gifts back in my room and I got a quarter to scratch my 5 $10 tickets. Now, I thought to myself, I'm not expecting to win anything. But the second I was about to move on to the 3rd ticket, I did a double take and I realized I won $25,000. For a second, I thought they were fake, but my grandma who bought them wouldn't do that. I sat in my room for a bit and decided to keep quiet about it, knowing how some family members might react. I thought about how I would tell them throughout the party, and when they asked about it, I said no and that I threw them out. But unfortunately, this is just the beginning of my problems, as my family turns on me in a way that I honestly never expected. The next day on the 29th, I asked my mom to come with me to cash in the lottery ticket. Now, she was surprised, of course, and told me that I needed to go to the casino, with my brother thinking this was funny and deciding to tag along. He proceeded to post snaps of me being handed $100 bills in the casino, although I told him not to say anything because of the commotion it would cause, and that I'd share some with the family. He posted it anyways. Well, an hour passes, and I'm pulled into a group chat of people from the party, plus some family members that couldn't make it. I said that I'd give everyone who came to the party $250, but they thought I was being selfish. For about 30 people that attended, that's $7,500 right there. I felt that was fair, but family members who were not even there argued that they shouldn't be excluded, and others argue that $250 isn't enough if I have $25,000. After about 30 minutes of arguing, I was pissed and I gave up negotiating. I told everyone that I'm sorry that they're not happy with their white elephant gifts this year, and that the rule was that all trades are final. So in the end, I kept all the money. I put $15,000 in my savings, and then I invested the rest. But now, many of my family members are still upset with me, even going as far as calling me cruel and heartless. But I told them that if $250 isn't enough from a $100 limit, then they are the selfish ones and not me. So seriously, am I at fault here, or am I the jerk for the way things went down? Because right now, I feel like there's a giant rift in my family. Okay, I've said this once and I'll say it 100 times on this channel. Do not tell people if you win the lottery. This is a prime example. First of all, it's only $25,000. And all these people are suddenly rolling up and being like, well, where's my share of it? 250 is not nearly enough. Like at that point, I don't blame you for taking all the money and being like, screw you guys, I'm out of here, I'm not doing this. Because this is how people act when money is involved. They change, they become vindictive, especially when it comes to family. Like, my God, your first mistake was telling anybody about this. You should have kept a lid on it and gone yourself. And for context, the original poster is 22 years old, so I'm willing to bet that they could have taken care of this by themselves. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for taking all the money, especially with the way that everybody acted, but I do think you're crazy for ever negotiating with anyone. Because if I was in your shoes, I would have quietly taken that money and used it for myself. I would not have gone to the rest of the family and been like, okay, everybody's getting a little bit of it, let's figure this out. Because at the end of the day, this is your money, and no one, and I mean no one in your extended family, has any say on what you can and cannot do with it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My ex said that I'll never make more than minimum wage and put me down in a way that was truly humiliating. So I decided to get some revenge by working harder than I've ever worked in my life to obtain a job that would not only make more money than him, but would also outpace any promotion he could possibly get. And I'm honestly so glad when we finally got a divorce, because that guy was absolutely unbearable. Here's what happened. Many years ago, after the birth of my oldest son, I desperately needed a job. I was scouring through the job section of as many newspapers as I could get my hands on. The pickings were slim, as my highest qualification was graduating high school. I had to ignore minimum wage jobs because it would cost more than it paid. Then my ex said the magic words, "Stop being so picky, as you're never going to earn more than minimum wage." Well, I saw red. Then I found the ad. They advertise free training to become a software engineer, obtain a professional certification, and get you a job afterwards. The only requirement was a high school diploma with a passing math grade. At first, I was very wary, because it definitely felt like it was too good to be true and possibly a scam, but I had nothing to lose by just checking it out. So off I went. The first day of the acceptance process was grueling. Multiple timed aptitude tests that took hours to complete. The ones who passed were invited to a second round of testing. This time, there were a lot less people. Out of the 30 people from the first day, only 2 of us were accepted at the end. And that's when I come to find out that it wasn't a scam. The reason why it was free was because the employers would pay for the training, and I was thrilled. But then this was followed by the most intensive 4 months of my life. But I was determined to prove my ex wrong. To give you a breakdown, I had 8 hours in class every single weekday, and another 6 for homework and studying. Then I would go from studying and doing a weekend project for another 20 hours over the weekend. I only got about 6 hours of sleep each night. Thankfully, my son was sleeping through the night by then. And eventually I made it. I did really well in my final exams too. The job search was short and sweet, and since it was only 3 years before Y2K, and even entry-level engineers were earning good salaries. And to top it all off, when I got my offer, my salary was more than my ex got. Internally, I was elated, and I thought, okay, well, take that, you insufferable jerk, even though I didn't say it out loud. As time went by, I kept getting really good raises and promotions, and my ex had finally had enough of the humiliation and eventually wanted a divorce. And trust me, I jumped at the chance to escape him. Wow, good for you for stepping up and getting this done. This could have gone one of 2 ways. Either you would figure your life out, or you would burn out and go back to something minimum wage. But you stuck through it just to spite your ex, and I love that kind of like petty revenge. Because this guy's way of treating you, in my opinion, was completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for not being reliable enough for my sister to use me as a backup babysitter for her kids during an emergency? Because right now my entire family has turned on me and is actively criticizing my life. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so right now I feel bad about this situation while also feeling resentment towards my family. My sister lives about 20 minutes away from me near our parents. There was a family emergency where she needed to meet my parents at the hospital, and taking her kids wasn't an option. She called me up at 6:45 p.m. on her way to my apartment to tell me that she needed to drop off the kids quickly and then run. I tried to tell her that I was not in the right condition for that, but she told me that it was an emergency and she had no other option. I begged her to call her mother-in-law, but she said that wouldn't work. When she showed up, she stepped inside my apartment to hand off her kids. And like I told her, I wasn't in a good condition for this. My friend and I had celebrated her new job. My sister was shocked and disgusted and then dragged her kids off, but not before telling me what a pathetic loser she thinks I am. She ended up texting me a novel about how disappointed she is, how upsetting it is for her kids to have walked into my apartment reeking of the herb, how I'm 27 years old and should be over this phase of my life and all this other garbage. She ripped into me for still living with 5 roommates, not having a car, and all this other stuff. It was deeply hurtful, and I just apologized for not being able to help her and the kids. Of course, I had no idea there could be an emergency like this, but you never know. That's why it's an emergency. And yes, I live with 5 people, but they are all my friends and we need each other to afford living here. Also, I don't have a car because I can't drive. And on top of that, the herb is legal here, and it's not a crime to smoke once in a while. My sister said that she was so disgusted with me that she brought my parents into it, and now they've all banded together to let me know what a piece of garbage I am for not living up to anyone's expectations. I do feel a bit defensive because I had no way of knowing this would happen. So I guess my question boils down to this. Am I the jerk for not being ready for an emergency at my big age of 27? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, what in the world is wrong with people? First off, no, this is not your fault, and no, you're not the jerk. Anyone taking your sister's side is so irrational. This went from your sister having an emergency all the way to your family basically like criticizing your living standards. Like seriously, what's happening here? It is so unfair for them to be like, wow, you're 27 years old. It's time for you to grow up. And it's like, okay, that's rich, coming from the person who literally is not planning ahead and is instead trying to drop off her kids and run off to whatever's going on. And sure, I get it, there's a family emergency, but does your sister seriously expect everybody to drop what they're doing and be like, oh yeah, we'll take care of your kids all of a sudden out of nowhere? Under different circumstances, this could work out. But the moment you said, hey, I can't take care of your kids right now, should have been the very second that she steps up and says, okay, let me ask someone else. Like it really is that simple. They owe you a massive apology for the way they treated you. And in my opinion, it almost seems like she finally found an excuse to openly criticize you. She comes by and tries to drop her kids off, and the second you say no, which honestly anybody would say no, she can now be like, wow, they are so irresponsible. Look at the way they're living their lives. I can't believe them. So with all that being said, no, you're not the jerk, because your sister is a complete idiot. And if she had any brains in her head, she would have gone to someone immediately instead of trying to drag you and your life. My entitled Karen of a coworker reported me to my supervisor for not doing my job exactly as described. But despite the fact that I tried to do things in the most optimized way, my coworker still reported me, ignoring the fact that I was split between 2 buildings and working incredibly hard. Here's what happened. Okay, so I really want to start off by saying I hate entitled people. I get that some people have bad days and end up snapping at those around them, but sometimes it just goes way too far, and this was one of those times. So buckle up because this really is a long one. Now, to try and set the scene, here is some important context. I'm a 3rd shift security guard working at a site with 2 buildings owned by the client, and they are about 5 minutes apart, if that. The client is a storage and shipping company that rents out space in these buildings to a big name luxury goods brand. Shifts for guards are set up so that 1 guard is in each building per shift, with a mobile guard that floats between buildings as necessary to cover breaks, man the checkpoints while the post guard does their duties, and clear out truckers from the parking lots when they're not supposed to be there. The mobile guards are expected to use their own vehicles and don't get compensated for gas or wear, and this will be an important detail later on. Now, with all that in mind, here's the story. I've been working at this site for almost 2 years now, and in that time, I've gotten pretty familiar with the job and what can and can't be done, especially on the 3rd shift. Things pick up around Thanksgiving to Christmas due to an increase of customer demand, so seasonal workers are hired by the client to help meet the demand, and as a result, extra guards are posted to the site to assist with medical emergencies, thievery, or anything else that might come up. This allows for 2 guards per building, often with the mobile still going between them. During my first year of employment here, one of those guards ended up staying on after the season was over, and that person is a lady that we will call Patricia, who is the entitled Karen of the story. Patricia is not her real name. Now, she is a sociable woman, she's friendly and outgoing, but she is a bit blunt. She makes jokes about everyone, even herself, and pokes fun at everything with a sarcastic type of humor that I don't really mind, as it is fairly similar to my own. She's also very touchy and likes to give hugs. Again, I don't really mind, because while I don't really like being touched, she is generally pretty nice, and she can actually get me to open up a little at work. However, here's where the entitlement comes in. Over the course of working with her, I've learned that she can be a bit of a drama queen, and I mean that in every possible way. She regularly complains about the other guards, and probably complains about me to them. She's constantly complaining about her living situation, and that list just goes on and on. It all came to a head for me last night when I finally realized just how deep the entitlement ran, because the way she acted truly blew my mind, and the resulting damage made my life a living nightmare. Now, remember how I said mobile guards don't get compensated for using their own vehicle? Well, I genuinely can't afford to not get compensated for the use of my own vehicle, and when I have to be the mobile guard, I really try to minimize my travel time. Instead of changing buildings every hour like most guards do on mobile duty, I only change buildings every 2 or 3 hours. And last night, I did something I've never done before. I split my knife with one half at one building and the other half at the second. Now, this was my reasoning. Due to the way the clients scheduled their workers, the first building is empty for the entirety of our shift, and no one comes in until an hour after our shift ends. However, in the second building, workers end their shift around halfway through our shift, with the next shift coming in at the end of our shift. Because of this, I figured I could spend half the night at the first building to allow that guard to complete all their necessary jobs, then switch to the second building to help get the workers out at the end of their shift, as well as helping get the next shift in later. And this was all under the understanding that either guard could radio if they needed assistance while I was at the other building. And that's the entire point of being the mobile guard. And by the way, that is also why we have radios. Well, care to guess who was in the second building? Because if you guessed Patricia, you would be correct. To be entirely fair here, I did make a pretty major mistake. I failed to communicate my intentions beforehand. But that, however, is the end of my leniency towards Patricia in this matter, because this is what happened. About an hour into the shift, she calls over the radio asking for an estimated time of arrival on when I would be changing buildings. I then let her know that I'd be over there halfway through the shift unless she needs me before that, and even asked her outright if she needed me right then and there. Well, she sounded a little annoyed when she said, "No, I just wanted some clarification and communication." And I really thought that was the end of it, but trust me, it gets way worse. Not once in the next 3 hours did she radio for assistance. Not one single time. When I finally made it to her building, I went in and greeted her, more cheerful than usual by the way, because I vastly preferred her company to that of the other guard on duty at the time. But then she snapped at me and said, "How could you think it's acceptable to be in the empty building all night?" While also saying, I had to get someone to cover so I could go to the bathroom and to get some ice. Well, at that point, my mood went from 100 to 0 just like that. So I coldly reminded her that I told her to call if she needed anything, and that was the entire point of the mobile guard. I even explained that I had intentionally split my night to be in her building to help get workers out at the end of their shift, as well as helping get them in for their morning shift. But she was not having any of it. She pointedly ignored me the rest of the night, and not 5 minutes after I clocked out, I got an email sent out by our supervisor to all guards stating the following: the mobile officer should not spend the majority of their time in an empty building, as apparently it was unfair to the officer in the full building. So yeah, Patricia complained about my one mistake to the supervisor because she was so entitled she couldn't get on the radio for 5 seconds to ask for assistance even once. Now, I could say a lot of mean things about Patricia, but she truly was an absolute Karen. First of all, I absolutely would be demanding compensation for using my vehicle to go from building to building. There's no way I would be okay with that, and they better give me a company vehicle or something, because that's absolutely not going to happen for my car in the slightest. But also, I really think you did the job wrong and you're somehow blaming Patricia for being upset about it. Because according to the job description that you laid out, you're supposed to go from building to building every hour. Like that is how it's supposed to work, and you didn't do that. Instead, you kind of adapted it in a way where yes, you really did camp in one building and then went to the other one at the end of your shift. And sure, I totally understand. Patricia really could have called and been like, "Hey, come over here real quick, I need to use the bathroom," or something like that. But based on the way she was trained and everybody else in the building and the company was trained for this specific job, she shouldn't have to do that. She should be able to expect that, oh, in about 45 minutes to an hour, my coworker will be coming by and then I can use the bathroom. Like, I understand that you had other things that you needed to do, but the point of being a mobile unit is to be mobile. So in my opinion, Patricia wasn't being entitled for expecting support. It's literally established in the routine, and you changed that just to make your life a little bit better. So in my opinion, I think the original poster is absolutely being a jerk. And if I was in your coworker's shoes, I absolutely would report you as well. Like, what you're doing is so weird and unacceptable. But truly, that is just my opinion. What do you think though? Do you think the original poster has a point, or do you think the coworker had every right to report this person? Leave a comment down below. We would love to read what you have to say. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for leaving a negative Google review and hurting my doctor's feelings after her staff literally ruined my experience with that office pretty much forever? Here's what happened. Okay, for the past 10 years, my family and I have been patients of a wonderful doctor. She's been there for us through so much, and I can't speak highly enough of the care that she's provided. When I lost my mom unexpectedly, she helped me navigate a tough time by assisting with FMLA paperwork, as well as short-term disability insurance, and adjusting my depression medication. And I am deeply grateful for the support she gave me during that difficult time. Recently, however, an issue with her office has left me questioning if I handled the situation poorly, or if the office could have done more to help me. Here's Here's what happened. A few months ago, after everything was sorted with my FMLA paperwork and insurance, I scheduled a wellness check for my 11-year-old daughter. About 2 weeks before the appointment, I got a call from the office's billing representative. She informed me that a bill for my daughter's visit over a year ago hadn't been paid because our insurance company had mysteriously changed my daughter's date of birth in their system. The claim had been rejected, and now it was apparently too late to be rebilled. The billing lady demanded that I pay $350 out of pocket or they would cancel my daughter's appointment. Now, I pay $900 a month for my family's insurance premium, so I expect them to pay for what they owe when we get sick. My husband and I both work in public education, so we don't make a lot of money. So I told her I would try to fix it with my insurance, but thankfully the insurance company corrected the error and assured me that the doctor's office could rebill the claim and they would process it. Well, I communicated this to billing, but she flat out refused to rebill it. This meant I had to go through a time-consuming process with the insurance company myself just to get them to pay directly. And if you've ever dealt with an insurance company before, then you know they don't do anything fast or make it easy for you. Throughout this, I kept the office updated. However, after one of my calls with the billing representative, I found myself locked out of the patient portal. I couldn't access it for days and assumed there were technical issues. After 5 days, I called to find out what was going on, and I was told I'd been locked out because I owed them money. This happened immediately after my last conversation with the billing representative, which made me feel like it was a deliberate action. I've always been on top of my bills and had a spotless payment history with them for 10 years. This situation wasn't my fault, and yet I still felt penalized. When I called the office manager to address it, she didn't return my call for 2 weeks. At this point, I was so frustrated that I wrote a Google review about my experience. I made it clear that my issue wasn't with the doctor, but with the office staff and their handling of the situation. When the office manager finally called me back, she said my doctor was deeply offended by the review and wished that I had spoken to her first. And seriously, I was surprised by this reaction. I couldn't have spoken to her because I was locked out of the portal, and I honestly didn't feel like it wasn't her responsibility to deal with the administrative issues. I believe her staff should handle those problems more professionally. I also mentioned to the office manager that there were several complaints about the office staff on Google as well. She then said they were all disgruntled past employees. And it's like, really? All of them? That's quite a coincidence, don't you think? When they finally opened the patient portal, I messaged my doctor an apology for offending her with my Google review, but I also explained my side of the story. Well, she didn't seem to have a lot of compassion for my side of the story, and it honestly blew my mind. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. Holy crap, this is so upsetting. Here you have a doctor you've seen for 10 years, someone that you have a solid relationship with, who clearly knows your family history and your life and has helped you through a lot of different things. But then in comes her stupid staff to ruin the entire experience. As someone who's worked in the medical field, let me tell you something. The way the billing manager and office manager handled this situation is completely unacceptable. They are completely incompetent and they should have handled this way better. From the billing situation to the office manager being like, wow, the doctor's really offended right now. And it's like, good, I hope she's offended and you guys get fired. You blocked the original poster from having any communication with the doctor. You demanded that they give you money while also refusing to rebill it, which by the way is incredibly easy. And then you try to sit there and take the high ground and be like, wow, the doctor's really upset about this. Yeah, no kidding. You guys suck at your job and it's your fault. So no, you're not the jerk for leaving a bad review, but if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely start looking for another doctor, because clearly this doctor you've known for 10 years has let her standards fall completely with her staff. And that, in my opinion, is not your fault in the slightest. My toxic entitled father mistreated me my entire childhood, as he constantly tried to force me to conform to a gender identity that I did not agree with. But now that I'm an adult, I decided to get some revenge by not only embarrassing him in front of the entire family, but also exposing him to the family that he has never been a good father to me. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, I'll say it bluntly. My genetic father is a horrible human being. By this point, I've completely cut contact with him. However, this happened on the very last time I ever had to see him. My mother left him when I was about 13 years old. However, due to his lies and manipulation, the court system failed me, and I was still forced to see him. So the mistreatment he inflicted continued until I was 18 years old, and only got worse after the divorce because he knew that hurting me meant that it would hurt my mother. He is the absolute definition of trash, and my rather unique situation was only fuel on this dumpster fire. I won't go into too great of detail about his depravity, but I will simplify it and say that if you weren't a straight white man or a straight woman in a prairie dress, then you were going straight to Hades in his eyes and didn't deserve the time of day. And as for me, being born as both genders, it was a living nightmare. Now, having both genders basically means I have incompatible traits from both sides, and I actually didn't even find this out until I was almost an adult. However, I had a lot of health problems because of it, and due to looking highly androgynous growing up, I was called a freak. At birth, I was signed off as a girl, and when I began having some unique changes with puberty, it was drilled into me that I was basically just an ugly woman who didn't deserve anything because I didn't meet my father's standards. The discussion about my gender and who I am is a very long story. However, as an adult, I made the choice for both my physical and mental health to become fully male. Due to my father, there were only 2 people in my entire family who knew about this: my mother and my grandmother on my father's side. My mother's an amazing person and was extremely happy for me, and my grandmother was the sweetest woman you'd ever meet. Picture the stereotypical grandma who bakes cookies in children's books, and that honestly was her. The woman would give her last penny just to make sure you felt happy and safe. She was delighted to hear that I was starting to find who I was. My grandfather passed away shortly after I was born. However, my grandmother started dating again many years later, and when I was 18, I got an invitation to her wedding. She was in her 70s and acting like a teenager with her new fiance, and it was amazing to see her so happy, and of course I wanted to go. But there was just one problem: my father would also be there too. At this point, I was already on hormone therapy for my treatments. I had facial hair, a flat chest, I didn't even look like my old self anymore, and I didn't want to think of the nightmare that would rain down from my father seeing me like this. But then I stopped myself in that moment, and I thought about it a little bit more, and after a bit of contemplating, I figured this would be perfect. He had always lied to family about what happened, painting himself as this loving father. So what kind of perfect dad wouldn't be happy for their son, right? Well, out of absolute spite, I went to a thrift store, got myself a classy black and purple gown, got some makeup, a pair of heels, and went to the wedding in full drag. My mother questioned as to why I was dressing up like a woman for this instead of just grabbing my suit, and when I told her what I was going to do, she broke out into full belly laughter and began insisting on helping me get ready to go. The wedding was lovely, everyone was smiling, and my grandmother was glowing the entire time, and I actually didn't see my father for the bulk of the reception. We had a big family, so I wasn't really surprised. However, at the end, as everyone was talking and getting cake, that's when my father spotted me. By this point, most of the family didn't even recognize me. However, when I was standing next to my mother, my father must have put the pieces together and started walking over. I then told my mother to go and be with my grandmother, and I was now left alone with my awful father in a crowd of people. He came right up to me and asked me what I was doing, and I just shrugged and continued people watching. He then leaned against the wall with me, and just as I expected, he began lecturing me. He pointed to my grandmother and now step-grandfather, and he said, "You see that? Make sure you get yourself a good man like that. Someone who makes enough to support you so you can stay home." I then looked over at him, and in my now deep voice, I said to him very simply, "Yeah, that would be great if I didn't have a girlfriend." Now, I wish I had a camera right at that moment just to capture the image of his eyes growing wide as he choked on his own words, and for the first time ever, he was left speechless. I could see him getting angry and trying hard to contain it, but I didn't care. I just casually waved over my grandmother. She came over smiling, and for the first time, I spoke openly with her in front of my father, telling her about my girlfriend and my journey into becoming a man. She was thrilled for me having a girlfriend, giving me a huge hug and telling me to invite her so that she could celebrate with everybody. And so that's exactly what I did. Now my father remained speechless, just staring at me as his face turned red, not daring to say a single thing in front of his own mother and their entire family. This was the one time that he was forced to be a decent human being to his child, because he was surrounded by everyone he had lied to, and he was stuck between the lie and the man he really was. After a while of him just stewing in his very clear anger, he turned around and left without a single word, walking out on his own mother's wedding. My grandmother had me and my mother sit with her and her now husband at a table, and we all laughed and ate, enjoying our time together and making memories without him. My step-grandfather asked why my father left so suddenly, and asked if everything was alright, and when I told him what happened, he looked at me with a sigh and said, "This is supposed to be a joining of families together. If he doesn't want to be part of that family, then so be it." And with all things considered, I honestly couldn't agree more. Okay, I love everything about this. This is like the perfect way of putting this guy in his place. You not only showed that this guy has no hold over your life, but he also can no longer lie about him being a good father to you, because he absolutely mistreated you, and I'm so sorry that you dealt with that. But also, I'm so glad that you have supportive family members who love you for exactly how you are, and the fact that you were finally able to put this guy in his place, especially in front of his family, in my opinion, was something this guy absolutely deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by calling someone the wrong name for several years at my job as a hostess. And now, after all these years later, I'm finally corrected and I feel like a complete idiot. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. In 2019, I worked as a hostess at a restaurant. Now, I actually applied to be a fry cook, but they recently had their only hostess quit and decided my 20-year-old lady self would be better as a host. They were kind of misogynistic like that and never really hired women to be fry cooks anyways, but I accepted the hostess role because social anxiety or not, I needed the money. This restaurant was also really popular as a takeout spot though, and as a hostess, one of my main duties was handling phone orders and walk-in to-go orders. Now, we had a lunch special that was a really good deal, so good that some people came in multiple times a week to order it to go. We took down names for takeout orders instead of giving numbers, so I really got to remember some names, and John was one of these regulars. He was older than me, probably mid-30s, and always looked kind of sad and nervous, but he was cute to me and I remember him well. One time, he came in a couple of hours after the lunch special was over, and like I said, the guy always seemed skittish and sad in the first place. Now, he seemed disappointed but was understanding and willing to order it at full price, but I felt bad, and I told him this one time only I could give him 10% off because I wanted to cheer him up. Now, it's still not as good of a deal as the lunch special, but it was something. He then actually smiled, thanked me, and looked happy for once. He hardly ever missed the lunch special after that, and thankfully when he did, he didn't expect the discount. Whenever he came in, I would always start typing his name and punching in his order, and just waiting to confirm that he wanted the usual before sending it to the kitchen and taking his payment. When it came out, I would call order for John, and he would come and grab it and thank me smiling. COVID happened and we didn't see a lot of our regulars like we used to. We were takeout only at that point, but even some of our takeout regulars weren't going out like that. And with everybody wearing a mask, it was harder to recognize regulars. But even then, I still tried. I kept working, but then I moved away for a while and I met a guy. And after a few months, I ended up moving back and I brought the guy with me. When I came back to my restaurant, I was unsure of my knowledge of the regulars. It had been too long, and plus I was in love now, so it kind of clouded my brain. So when I saw people that I had probably seen 100 times before, I still asked them to confirm everything. That is, except for John. I kept pre-typing everything in for him and continuing my process the same as before, and he would still smile at me as I passed the order over after calling out order for John. I felt like maybe I hadn't completely lost my knack since I still remember John. Now, I stayed at that restaurant long enough to where eventually they made me a manager. I was in the kitchen 90% of the time actually doing stuff like working the fryer, which is something I applied for all those years ago. One day we were short a hostess and I, as the manager, had to fill in. I was feeling especially self-conscious, doubting myself as I wasn't front of house as often as I was before. So when he came in, I did my usual and I started pre-typing everything. He came to the host stand smiling. He mentioned not seeing me in a while, and after I explained, he congratulated me on the promotion, saying that I deserved it. So I thanked him, I read back his regular order, and I asked to confirm by saying, "And it's for John, right?" Well, he was still smiling when he said to me, "Actually, my name is Chris, but I know sometimes I look like John." And it's like, what in the world is going on? I've been calling him the wrong name for years. Who is John? He knows John? Was he trolling me the entire time? I 100% knew it was the same guy I'd been calling John for years. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. Thankfully, though, I moved away shortly afterwards. And it's for several reasons, not just because I was terribly embarrassed. And thankfully, I never saw this guy ever again, because this is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. Oh my gosh, I would die from embarrassment. There's no way I would ever live that down. Thank God you moved away. Like, seriously, that is so embarrassing. But honestly, with all things considered, I don't blame you for getting someone's name wrong. This guy introduced himself as John all those years ago, and now he's trying to be like, actually my name's Chris. And it's like, no, it's not John, your name's John, don't lie to me. And sure, this is super embarrassing, but also it's incredibly funny. Am I the jerk for offering to get my sister groceries from Dollar Tree instead of outright giving her cash? Because right now she's saying she would rather go hungry than eat from Dollar Tree. And at this point, I'm not sure if I offended her or if I was in the right. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my sister is broke and has no groceries. And this is also all according to her. I have not personally seen her kitchen, so I have no idea. And right now, she's asking me for $40 that she can borrow. And by the way, she never pays anyone back for anything. And she wants that money so she can get some groceries. I told her I'm really strapped for cash right now myself, as I just had to pay rent, the bills, and take my dog to the emergency vet, which in itself costs about $487. And I don't get paid again until next week. As a side note, she does not work due to severe health issues. Her husband does work, but doesn't make that much. And yet somehow makes too much money to qualify for food stamps. So what I told my sister was that I could go to Dollar Tree and get some stuff to help them get by until he gets paid. Well, she got really upset and offended. She then said to me, no thanks, I'm good. I then told her I watch a lady on TikTok who makes really good looking stuff with Dollar Tree items, but she still said no, especially because their meat looks nasty and her main meal that she eats daily is meatloaf, which I really can't afford to get right now because where we live, ground beef is so expensive. At this point, I told her, well, beggars can't be choosers. Those are her options. It's either that or go hungry. She said she would rather go hungry and then she hung up on me. So seriously, am I the jerk for offering to get my sister groceries from the Dollar Tree? I feel like I might be the jerk here because yes, I could have given her the $40, but then I would not be 100% certain that would actually go towards groceries. And I've learned the hard way to never give her cash. But now I feel like a jerk and a bad sister. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk because seriously, what you're offering her is some kind of like assistance to get by. And I don't blame you for not giving her cash. If she really is strapped for like groceries, then buying her groceries directly really would be a good solution. So no, you're clearly not the jerk here because it sounds like your sister is absolutely not trustworthy. My manager made me cry today at my restaurant job as she literally embarrassed me in front of the entire staff. And now I honestly feel so stuck and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I really need to vent right now. I don't work as often at this restaurant, but just on Friday nights and Saturday nights. Now I had a full section and we were at the dinner rush. I have been serving in this restaurant for about 7 months and it was my first restaurant job, so I'm thankful they made me a server with no experience. I did mess up a lot in the beginning, but I have gotten better. One of my tables ordered their sandwich with no cheese, and we had a food runner, but I also got very busy with serving drinks, and I was not at the kitchen for about 10 minutes. One of the runners took the no cheese sandwich to the wrong table, and I didn't notice. In fact, I went to ask if everything was fine, and they said yes. So then, when I served my other table and brought the sandwich, I didn't see that it had cheese. I went to ask for another sandwich on the fly, but I then made a fatal error to go to the kitchen and see if it was done, and made a slight comment how my table looked a bit upset. My manager then heard me saying this and went ballistic, saying this happened because I was not in the kitchen. I decided to serve my sandwich and it was around that time where they were low on water and got on me for not refilling their water fast enough. She found everything that I could possibly be doing wrong and yelled at me for it, telling me my section was too big to handle even though my full section was happy and drinks were always filled. Now this isn't the first time I've gotten yelled at by this manager, who by the way is the head manager, and when she does this, I just zone out. I mean, my face just goes blank. She yelled at me in front of everyone. It was so degrading and other servers were around just completely all quiet. 2 other servers told me that it was not fair how she talked to me, and I eventually broke down in front of them. It happens when I'm mad, and I was having what I felt like was a panic attack because I was still in a rush and I had no time to cry. The no cheese table probably saw my eyes being extremely red, but I was mad. I was humiliated and I felt so powerless. When I then tried to talk to this manager, she just yells and never listens to any reason. And on top of that, she wants to always be right and say to me how she's running a business here. I understand that I'm not the best server, and sure, I made many mistakes before, but she is emotional, degrading, and then she acts like things are okay after that, calling me sweet cheeks and all this other stuff. I understand restaurant work is stressful and we yell, but I really feel like her punching bag, mostly because I don't talk back, and I'm more of the quiet one, still not fully out of her shell type. I have been told that she does this to every server that still works there, and she stops once you stand up to her, and I just need to tell her I cannot be treated like that in front of people. It doesn't help anyone to be like that. She made me cry and one of our hostess cry. Thank God I had eye drops in my bag because my eyes were blazing. She's the #1 reason I want to quit, but the food prices here are high enough where the tip out is really good. I'm still not the best server, but I have improved so much, and I have become better with prioritizing, but she still makes me feel like I did in my first month, and right now with all things considered, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna say this as nicely as I can. You need to stand up for yourself. You do not deserve to be treated this way. You cannot allow this lady to walk all over you like this, because trust me, it will happen every single day if you let it. There will be no compromise in her head. She will literally see you as a punching bag and that's it. And trust me, this is not gonna get easier before it gets better. She won't care if you work hard and you suddenly like improve in your performance. She will always find a reason to put you down. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would go straight up to her the next time she tries that, making sure I'm in front of the entire staff, and tell her outright that she's never talking to me like that again. She needs to be respectful just as much as you've been respectful to her. You are doing a good job and she needs to recognize that. And honestly, who cares if she fires you or not? This lady cannot talk to you like that and you you do not deserve that. So hopefully you can grow the courage to get this taken care of, or if anything, just find another job, because that manager sounds like an absolute toxic nightmare. Am I the jerk for accidentally catching my brother's girlfriend in a lie, as I expose the fact that she wasn't actually a lawyer? Because right now the entire family is pissed off at me, and I now am not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 19-year-old female, and I have a brother who's 24 who I will call Liam for the sake of the story. Earlier this year, he started dating a girl that he met at his climbing class that I will call Emma. Emma is 26 years old, and they've been together for 4 months. And this weekend, he decided to introduce her to us. They arrived yesterday and are staying until tonight. She is a really nice person, and we get along well. Then, at one point, my dad asked her what she did in life, and she said that she was a lawyer. Now, I was super interested because I'm currently studying law and have wanted to be a lawyer since I was about 10 years old. So I was very excited to ask her questions about it. I asked about what cases she had, how she studied to become a lawyer, and what her days looked like, and many more things. Now, I might have been a little over-enthusiastic and annoying, but I didn't realize it at the time, and I was just excited to get to ask someone questions about my dream job. But at some point, she said something that seemed incoherent to me. The details might be long and boring, but basically, she just said something that isn't technically possible. So I was curious and a bit confused, and I asked her how that was possible, because I just thought she's the professional, so she must know better than me. But as she tried to explain it, she just said more incoherent and impossible things. It was kind of like someone quoting things from Grey's Anatomy to doctors, if you see what I mean. So I asked more about it to understand, and that's when she admitted that she wasn't actually a lawyer and she worked at a bookstore. She told us that she was very sorry for lying, and then left the table, and my brother followed after her. Well, my parents then kind of scolded me for being so intrusive, and when my brother came back, he was a bit angry. He started telling me that I was wrong for interrogating her, and that I made her uncomfortable, and that she had lied because she was embarrassed about her job, and I just made her more embarrassed. And now he hasn't been talking to me ever since then, and neither has Emma. Now, I'm not sure I'm in the wrong here, but they all seem to think so. I get that me asking questions was annoying, and maybe a bit too much, but I truly didn't have any bad intentions. I was just excited to be able to talk about it with someone. And also, I don't understand how everyone is so okay with the fact that she lied to my brother for 4 months, and then she also lied to us. I get being embarrassed, but I don't know if it's still a bit weird to me. But I never meant to make her uncomfortable, and I genuinely liked her. I don't see how I'm in the wrong, but maybe I just can't see it. So please, I really need to know. Am I the jerk for calling her out on not being a lawyer? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. This is so weird. You have to be a special kind of stupid to sit there and be like, oh yeah, I'm a lawyer. Like, did she not think she was gonna have some kind of questioning about her career? Because that is not a degree or some kind of profession you just walk into. It takes a long time to become one, and you definitely need to know your stuff. So if anything, the original poster is doing their brother a favor. Who would want to date someone who lies in this manner, and so casually at that? No one cares that you work in a bookstore or anything like that. Like, seriously, just be honest about what you do. Because lying like that, in my opinion, is a huge red flag. And the fact that you expose that, in my opinion, is doing your brother a huge favor. 2 entitled parents do nothing to shut up their stupid kids as I'm trying to watch Wicked in the movie theater. Because as a result, they were screaming and making noise, as well as running up and down the aisle the entire time. And I'm honestly still pissed off about this experience. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I was really excited to see Wicked. But there were these 2 awful parents who let their kids talk all through the first half of it. And they were not just talking, but literally screaming. One little girl kept saying, "What's that?" every 5 seconds. Now, I'm not totally sure how many kids there were, but I think there were 2 or 3 of them. Now, I was at the back and there were some empty seats at the front. I went there thinking it would help, but seeing as they were in the middle, it really didn't matter. At the halfway mark, I found a staff member and I asked them to tell the parents to quiet their kids. The kids shut up with their vocal cords, but one boy kept running up and down the aisle, which then caused noise and distracted me because I was right next to the aisle. I felt bad for the kids because they were clearly bored out of their mind. I'm not saying that kids can't like Wicked, but it's not made for kids. The most frustrating thing was the lobby outside was empty, and the kids could have run up and down to their heart's content, but the parents just had to not miss anything and instead ruined it for everyone else. So if you have to see Wicked, get a babysitter, and if you can't get one, then keep your kids quiet. Give them some snacks or an iPad, I don't know. Just make sure you're not being antisocial to everyone around you. Man, this really pisses me off because theater etiquette is so gone these days. People just don't care about anyone else, and when they go to the theater, they're like, oh, I'm gonna make noise and do whatever I want. Especially when it comes to a musical. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to hear you screeching at the top of your lungs. I didn't come here to listen to you screech along to the musical. I came to watch them do it because obviously the people on screen are way better than all of us. So yeah, this whole scenario just pisses me off, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. An entitled old jerk steals stuff out of my trunk, all as some kind of weird life lesson about how some criminal could steal out of my car when I'm not looking, and I'm honestly so exhausted dealing with my nosy, entitled neighbors that I really hope I don't deal with them ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, we got a new fridge yesterday, and it's one of those humongous double-door monstrosities, and of course it came with a humongous amount of styrofoam and cardboard, all of which that I need to get rid of. And the quickest way for me to get rid of it is shoving it in my car and driving it over to the municipal waste depot. So I started cutting things apart and bringing them to my car, which is parked in my driveway. Unfortunately, it's so much trash that I have to go 5 times to my car. I go on the first trip, open my car's trunk, and I load it up. And for the sake of convenience, I leave the trunk open. Yes, it's right next to the sidewalk, but I live in a pretty safe area, and I'm only loading trash. So if anyone wants to help themselves to styrofoam, then sure, why not? Go for it. I go back inside and bring the next 2 loads out and into my car, and on my third trip, some old entitled jerk stands next to my car. Now, I don't know him, and he probably doesn't know me, but he's in my driveway and right next to my car. So seemingly, he's interested in talking to the owner of said car, which is unfortunately me. The next time I approach my car with both my hands full of styrofoam, I say out loud, "Excuse me," and then I shove it into my trunk. This old entitled guy then starts asking me if this is my car, but after I tell him that it is, he then immediately launches into a tirade about how I must be crazy leaving it open and whether I want to invite criminals into the neighborhood and how irresponsible I am. I respond by saying, "I don't care about your opinion and I need you to get off my property." And I yell this at him, and I honestly just don't even wait for him to reply, but instead storm back inside to get the last bits of plastic wrap. For the last time, I get back to my car, and this old entitled jerk is thankfully missing, but also so is a big piece of styrofoam from my trunk. And this was the base plate that the fridge stood on, which is basically the largest and most unwieldy piece of them all. Now, I was asking myself, did this old entitled jerk take it? I look around for a while thinking that he might have thrown it somewhere, but no, it's definitely gone. Well, my partner and I shrug, we get into the car and drive to the depot. On our way back from there, my wife and I go for lunch and shop some groceries. And all in all, we were gone for almost 2 hours. But the moment we come home and step out of my car, this old entitled jerk storms across the street with a missing styrofoam piece in hand, and he is visibly angry at me for some reason. He then immediately tries to go off at me by ranting about how he's now taught me a lesson about keeping my car locked, and that I should be lucky that it was only him and not some actual criminal, and that I'm getting my property back. Well, once again, I tell him to leave my property, and also that I will call the police if I ever see him on here ever again. He says he's happy to never talk to me again once I take back what is mine, but I reply that I'm not taking that piece back, and I suggest he stick it right up his rear end. And at this point, he says the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. He threatens to call the police on me for not taking the styrofoam back that he stole out of my car. So I put my hands on my hips, and I tell him I would gladly tell the police about how I just had some stuff stolen from my car, and that the perpetrator was right here. Well, he huffs and puffs, and then throws the styrofoam to my feet and stomps off like a little toddler. And honestly, I'm so sick of my neighbor, and I really hope I never deal with him ever again. Wow, this idiot is completely out of line. First of all, it is just styrofoam that he took out of your car, and I think you have the right idea of basically saying, yeah, whatever, if someone steals it, fine, I don't give a crap. But for this guy to walk on your property, lecture you about putting stuff in your car, and then steal from you to try and teach you a lesson, all while complaining that there are criminals in the area, is honestly the stupidest thing I've ever seen. This guy literally is the criminal in this scenario. He's complaining about himself in a way that's just so weird. So honestly, I kind of wish that you did call the police on this guy, because you literally have evidence right in front of you. And seriously, what is with this guy being like, oh, you got taught a lesson today, look at you. It's like, dude, you're not teaching someone a lesson. I don't know you. You literally stole stuff out of my car regardless of what it is, under the guise that a criminal could do this, but you are the criminal in this scenario. It's honestly so stupid, and I just can't stand people like this, where they have this weird sense of like, oh, I'm so much better than you and I'm so much wiser than you. So yeah, this guy was completely out of line, and hopefully you don't have to deal with him ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not paying my parents' mortgage after my sister moved into their house, despite the fact that my parents said they wanted to sell that house and give me a larger portion of the sale? Because right now they're saying I'm betraying the family, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. For the past 8 years, I've been paying my parents' property taxes taxes and mortgage. They are retired and have very little retirement savings because they put all their money into my sister and I's education. We both went to top universities and found successful jobs afterwards. I felt like I owed my parents for all they sacrificed for me, so it was a no-brainer to help them retire with no financial stress. My parents did not consult my sister about splitting these costs with me, and instead the agreement was that I would get a larger share of the house. Fast forward to now, and my sister unfortunately lost her job last year, and as a result, doesn't have much savings. And she even had to move in with my parents to save money while she looks for a job. I then recently found out that my sister pitched staying permanently in my parents' house, and my parents agreed. Now, I was furious at this because I had been paying for the house with the understanding that it would be sold and I would get a larger share of it. It is very likely that my sister never sells the house and instead raises her eventual family there. Because the original agreement with my parents changed, I stopped paying for the mortgage, leaving it up to my sister to take care of it if she's really taking over the house. My parents are furious with me, saying I'm too money obsessed and should be continuing to help the family while my sister is in a tough spot still looking for a job. Instead, they are promising that eventually my sister will pay me out of my share of the house, plus whatever else I contributed over 8 years. Now, I turned that offer down because there's no guarantee that this will happen, and I don't trust my sister to follow through financially. Now, I may be the jerk for taking such a cynical stance and leaving my family in financial stress, but I feel like I was already burned once through verbal agreements and I don't want to get burned again. What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. This honestly is so stupid it's not even funny. You mean to tell me that they went back on a verbal agreement and basically still want you to help pay for it? It's like, wait a second, you're only doing that so you can make money off the sale of the house. Why should you still have to step up and be like, sure, I'll take care of it while also having no equity in it? Like, this is a perfect example as to why you need everything in writing. If it's not in writing, then congratulations, it never happened in my opinion. So no, you're not the jerk for not wanting to do this, because if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. An entitled jerk gives my phone number out just so he doesn't get calls from realtors. So I decided to get some revenge by not only finding this entitled jerk's information, but also giving down his new current phone number so that all these phone calls could finally come to an end. Here's what happened. About 3 or 4 years ago, I started getting spam calls from realtors looking for someone by the name of Roy. They spammed me for a week or two and then it stopped. Eventually, I forgot about it and then I moved on. But every once in a while, I would get another one. Every time it was about Roy selling property in a state on the opposite side of the country. Now, instead of telling the caller off like usual, I talked to them one night. They were happy to give me Roy's full name and the address of the property he kept dangling for sale. So I looked him up, and he had been using my phone number on all the real estate websites just so he didn't get bothered with calls. Eventually, the calls went away and I forgot about it again. But about 2 months ago, they started back up again. I remembered where I had written down Roy's info, and I checked him again for an updated phone number. This time, I lucked out and found his real cell phone. I considered texting him to stop giving out my number, but I didn't want to deal with some crotchety old man who thought he was getting one over on a stranger. The very next day, I got yet another phone call with an out-of-state area code. I said to him, "Oh, you're looking for Roy? Hang on a second, let me give you his phone number." And then I recited his phone number to the caller. The person on the line then asked me if I was related to Roy, but I responded by saying, "Nope, I've never met the man, or even been to that city. I live about 3,000 miles away." But that jerk has been giving out my phone number for 4 years. So I did some research and I found him. They responded by saying, "I don't know what you do for a living, but you should really be an investigator." I thanked him and I said, "Would you mind updating your system with that phone number instead?" And they said that they would, while also thanking me for being so nice about this. But after that, I never got another call again, and honestly, for the sake of my sanity, I am incredibly relieved. That is a really crappy thing to do. Instead of putting down your real number, you give out someone else's fake number. Like, if that happened to me, I would be furious. Like, I would be so annoyed. Who wants to be bothered with stuff that literally has nothing to do with you? So good for you for hunting this guy down, because the fact that he dragged you into his mess is honestly so unfair. Would I be the jerk if I kicked my sister-in-law out of my wedding after she has literally done nothing to help out? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female and I'm getting married to my fiance in the spring of 2025. His sister initially requested to be in the wedding as she wanted to be a bridesmaid. Since the wedding festivities have begun, she has seemed extremely uninterested in being involved in any capacity. She joined in the bachelorette trip, but didn't help in planning, setting, or cleaning up. She also didn't want to get the bridesmaid, which is after my matron and maid of honor followed up with her numerous times. But finally, I got involved and she purchased the dress. But of course, it was 10 weeks after everyone else. She also didn't attend the bridal bridal shower planning meeting, nor has she asked any of my bridesmaids what she can do to help. She has also been uncommunicative with all of the bridesmaids and won't respond to text messages for days or even weeks at a time, and when she finally does respond, there's always an excuse of why she can't do something or couldn't respond. And now she's informed everyone in the bridal party and my fiance, but not me of course, that she isn't attending the bridal shower because she's going to another bachelorette trip. Everyone has known the bridal shower date for months, and seeing as this is my future sister-in-law, it is honestly a slap in the face. It also might be important to note that her husband is a groomsman and has gone above and beyond with helping and planning outings for my fiance and his groomsmen. Her 2 daughters under the age of 2 years old are supposed to be the flower girls as well. I just feel like her presence and attitude thus far has really put a damper and strain on our wedding, which is supposed to be a happy experience. I also don't want to ruin our relationship, but I'm honestly at my wit's end. So seriously, would I be the jerk if I kicked my sister-in-law out of my wedding party? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. Okay, to start things out, I don't think that you would be the jerk for kicking her out, but I also think you need to realize that if you do that, this will come with negative consequences. I really think if you do this, it will cause a lot of drama in the family, and this will only create a divide that you will probably have no idea how to fix. And sure, obviously discuss this with your fiance first, but taking this step, in my opinion, is one of those where it's like, okay, there's no going back from this, because then her husband and the kids are going to be out of this wedding party, and there's a chance that none of them will show up. So for me, if I was in your shoes, I would just kind of grit my teeth and bear it and be like, okay, whatever, she's not going to be here and I'm not going to waste my time involving her, because it really sounds like everyone's reached out to try and get her involved. You've called her, you've texted her, you've tried to see if she can be involved, and honestly, she's not communicating. So if I was in your shoes, I would just move forward without her. And sure, she can stay as a bridesmaid if she wants, but you can guarantee that she's staying at the end of the line. Like, she's going to be a bridesmaid in name only, because the way she's acting is just completely inappropriate. So no, you wouldn't be the jerk if you did kick her out, but in my opinion, this really will set things off in a terrible manner. Am I the jerk for saying no to babysitting on my birthday for my best friend, who is basically demanding that I travel to Puerto Rico and watch her kid while she goes out and has fun? Because right now she's not talking to me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm a 40-year-old female, and I have a supposed best friend who's also 40, and we've been friends ever since we were 15. I have been a mom for 23 years, including my pivotal time where I should have been living my life and having fun, but also being kid-free. She just had a kid at 35. She is single and still lives at home with parents, who, by the way, provide everything financially to her and the kid. My birthday was this past weekend, and I'm at a stage in my life where I can celebrate my birthday without kids without being mom. Well, my former best friend announced that she was going to Puerto Rico that same weekend, and she said, well, why don't you come with us? Meaning her and her kids. And her reasoning to go was so that she could get some action, if you know what I mean. In fact, her reasoning for inviting me was so that I can watch her kid while she goes and does whatever she wants. Well, I respectfully declined, saying that I had other plans, which I did for a whole month prior to this conversation. Once I said that, she got mad at me because I wouldn't spend $1,300 just in travel and room alone to spend my birthday babysitting her kid. Meanwhile, I've never asked her to watch any of my kids for the entirety of our friendship for any reason, period. The entire friendship of 25 years went down in a downward spiral from there, literally in a matter of a week. This got so bad that she was mad at me that I was working and driving 3 hours out of town, and I didn't respond to her. She also sent me nasty pictures in regard to a legitimate award that I won for videography. Well, my birthday came along, and she didn't even tell me happy birthday. In fact, she's saying that she's out there living her best life, while also posting pictures from Puerto Rico. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing to watch her kids and somehow setting boundaries? Because honestly, I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. This is so incredibly intrusive. You mean to tell me that she wanted you to come along to Puerto Rico so that she could have some kind of babysitter while she went out into the night to try and sleep around? Like, what is going on right now? That is honestly insane. At that point, just leave your kid at home and hire a babysitter, because it's clear that she was just trying to use you in this situation. So no, you're not the jerk at all, and honestly, this lady is incredibly entitled, and I don't blame you for stepping away in the slightest. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that if her boyfriend of 3 months and his kid move in, then we are moving out, because things are cramped as it is, and this situation is absolutely not fair? Here's what happened. So my mom and dad had me at a very young age. My mom was 17 and my dad was 19. It was pretty tough, especially back in the day, but we all made it work somehow. But when I was 12 years old, my dad got a heart attack and passed away, and it then just left me and my mom. Ever since my dad, she has had had 2 serious guys, but it never worked out because she always said that no one can compare to your dad. Well, that is until now. At this point, I am married, and my mom lives up at the coast in a very small town, the kind where the only shop for groceries is a small convenience store. My husband and I got into some financial issues, and my mom said that we should move in with her so that we can get back on our feet. Now, I was skeptical at first because it is obviously not ideal, but my mom, with her kind heart, said to me, "I can see that you feel bad about it. Don't feel bad. Life is hard enough, and parents are there to lift their children up and catch them when they fall. You need to come back home and regroup and gather back strength, so life is not that hard on you." Now, my mom lives in a small coast property that she rents, and it's the type of place that looks like a 1-bedroom cabin from the outside. Well, it's a 3-bedroom and 1 bathroom, and the walls are thin. The Wi-Fi is rocky because of the coast and all the wind, and my husband works remotely in IT, so it's definitely not ideal, but we are making it work. Well, we have been here for about 20 days now, and it was going good, and it honestly felt like a dream. But yesterday, my mom calls me. A guy she dated last year proposed to her, and she hasn't given an answer yet. But she told him and his 16-year-old that they are welcome to move in. A couple hours after that, she came back home all excited, but the smile quickly faded when I started asking questions. And this was nothing unreasonable, just the logical ones that got our heads spinning like, okay, how could you ask him to move in after 1 phone call of catching up after 3 months of dating a year before? How are we going to live here? She then got defensive, and I tried explaining that I'm just worried about her, and it all feels a bit impulsive. A few hours of everyone just keeping out of each other's faces, my mom came to me asking if I would take a ride with her to the convenience store. On the road, she asked me if I was really just worried about her, and I said to her, of course, you are my mom, and it would have been the same if the roles were reversed. Then she asked me and said, well, what do you want me to say? I responded by saying, I want you to say you didn't just do something that impulsive without giving it some kind of thought. She then said to me, it is my house. You are not going to be dictating what is allowed and who is allowed in my home. I responded by saying, I agree, but you invited your daughter and son-in-law to come and live with you in an already cramped space to help us, and not even 20 days later, you want to move a man in with his 16-year-old son, and after only 3 months of dating the previous year, and then you come to us to inform us about it? I'm not saying that you should have asked permission, but a discussion would have been kind. Well, from there on, it was total silence from the convenience store to back home. When I got home, I told my husband what happened, and he said I better go ask forgiveness for speaking so out of line. He said to me, you can't tell a grown woman what to do. She raised you by herself, and we can't expect her to put her life on hold for us, even if a discussion would have been the right thing to do. Well, I thought about it a while, and I decided that he was right. It was out of line, and so I apologized, but it did not go as I thought it would. She said to me, it's kind of you to apologize, but it wasn't necessary. You just expressed your worry, and I have to respect that because you are my daughter. But he is special, and I'm not going to rescind my offer, and I will not ask for permission. If he wants to come, then he is coming, and that's that. Well, I just stood there completely dumbfounded. How could she be so obtuse about it, and not even understand that she is putting us in an uncomfortable situation as well? So I just said, that's fine. You can make your own decisions in life, but we cannot all live here. And so if they move in, we will move out. It really would be the best thing for all of us. She then said to me, oh, come on, honey, you are being a bit rash now. You don't need to move out, and we will make it work. You need to sort out your things. I said to her, no, Mom, it's not rash. We cannot all live here. If the house was bigger, it would be different. But 5 people in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom cabin is a bit much and unrealistic if you really think it will work. My husband also needs to work. And also, where will he work? She then said to me, maybe you both need to just think about this some more and then get back to me. And that was that. Ever since then, my mom is acting like nothing happened, and she's just going on as usual. Now, it's important to know that I've never met this man or his child. In fact, I never even knew his name until this all came up. And when she called me all excited and she said Mike proposed, it then left me stating the obvious. Okay, but who is Mike? So seriously, am I just being an ungrateful child and being a jerk towards my mom? I just feel like this entire plan is too strange, because right now I don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. This is honestly so weird, because the first question through my head is, why would your mom do this to you? She is literally leaving you in such a bad situation where it's like, okay, we already moved once, and now less than a month later, we're probably gonna have to move again. She literally made you uproot your life, and it's like, okay, why would you do that if you were gonna just be so willing to let someone else move into this small cabin? So no, you're not the jerk at all, because honestly, I would do the exact same thing and definitely move out, because what she's saying is completely unreasonable. My entitled father-in-law is absolutely useless, and it is so frustrating, especially especially considering that his wife is about to have a serious knee surgery that requires her to do little to nothing until she gets better. And we're honestly so frustrated that right now we don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my idiotic father-in-law's wife of many years is about to have a serious knee surgery, and they are both in their early 70s. She will be entirely out of action for a few months, and it's imperative for her recovery that she does not lift or even try to walk much for much of that time. Now, we are having to plan how they are going to survive this time, and we're going to have to plan their food, their cleaning, laundry, and even working out their sleeping arrangements, because the fully fit and theoretical capable father-in-law is entirely and completely incompetent. He can't and honestly won't cook or clean or do laundry or even get off his backside to help his wife move around. He is entirely disinterested in the entire thing, has not listened to a word the consultant or we have told him about how important this is, and has taken no proactive steps to prepare. We're seriously considering having her move in with us so we can actually look after her during her recovery, as we know that left alone with him, she will have to be the one to be doing the dishes and cooking dinner by about day 3, and that she'll end up worse off than without the surgery at all. I just can't imagine being so intentionally useless, especially towards your own wife. Yeah, that father-in-law is really dumb. If he cared about his wife, he would step up and do what needs to be done. But instead, he's kind of being lazy and almost intentionally incompetent. Like, I wouldn't blame you if you moved her into your house so that you guys can actually take care of her, because what you described is something I could absolutely see happening. A toxic, entitled delivery guy refuses to move his car out from in front of my driveway, and despite me asking him nicely to please move so I can go into town, he still refused to do anything about it, claiming that he could park wherever he wanted. So I decided to get some revenge by literally returning the favor, blocking his delivery van from going any further, thus making his life a living nightmare. Here's what happened. So this happened some years ago, but I still remember the situation very clearly. My house has a garage next to it and a driveway to get out of my property and onto the street. The street in front of my house is rather narrow. 2 cars can't pass each other safely, and there is no sidewalks. And next to the street are walls. And in that area, people like to build small stone or concrete walls around their property, and they're not really high, but it's high enough to make it a barrier for cars and such. There are no official stopping restrictions, but due to the narrow street and the numerous driveways, it's obvious that parking on the street is a really bad idea. Next to my property is a restaurant that gets stuff delivered every now and then. The kitchen entrance is next to our driveway, and the delivery drivers usually park on the parking area across the street so they won't block traffic. For reference, the street is mainly used by residents, so there is not much traffic anyways. On one particular day, I had to leave quite urgently, as I was heading to the town hall to pick up some documents, like my new identification card. Exactly on this day, a delivery driver decided to park his van next to my driveway just to save some meters of walking. He didn't block my driveway, but I couldn't exit my property, and backing up to get out wasn't an option either because of the concrete walls. When he came out to pick up the next box, I kindly asked him to move his van. Well, he denied and pointed out that he turned on his hazard flashers, as if they're somehow entitling him for parking wherever he wants. He continued delivering and left me kind of annoyed because of this entitlement and stupidity. But it's right about now that my petty revenge starts to play out. I was sitting in my car, still blocking half the street, as I couldn't get out. The delivery driver finally finished his job, started his van, and wanted to move forward so he wouldn't have to back up, which obviously was a pain in the butt. He then gestured to move away, and I could have backed up my car 2 or 3 meters so he could pass me and do a U-turn further down the street. But you know what? I didn't. Instead, I switched off my engine and switched on my hazard lights. And you could literally see how he went from annoyed to fuming in anger in a split second, which made me laugh even more. After shouting out some profanities, he realized that I won't move. So he had to back up like 300 meters while still yelling and ranting profoundly. And sure, I was late for picking up my documents, but I seriously couldn't stop grinning for the entire day. Wow, I love this story for so many reasons, but most of all, I love the fact that you gave his energy right back at him. Because seriously, this guy was blocking traffic on a narrow street, and for him to be like, sorry, my hazards are on, I'm not leaving. Like, that's obnoxious, and I don't blame you for getting back at this guy. So yes, this was some fantastic petty revenge, because this guy absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for declining to fix the errors that my sister-in-law is pointing out in a blanket that I crocheted specifically for her? Because right now, she's acting so upset and has been very rude to me. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I made a blanket for my sister-in-law, who we will call Amanda. I was able to give it to her last weekend, and and she had requested it in certain colors. I didn't have any other projects to do on my list, so I was happy to make it for her, and I had most of the colors already too, so it kind of worked out. When I gave it to her, she was excited and she started to look it over. I figured it was to see how it was put together since she didn't crochet, but after a little bit, she said that she loved the blanket, but she couldn't help but notice some of the little mistakes that I'd made along the way. I then asked her what she meant, and she pointed out some things, like I'd accidentally done one row of stripping instead of 3 for one section, and how I'd switched to the wrong color and threw off the pattern at some point, and the list went on and on. She then handed it back to me and told me that she loves my progress with it and couldn't wait to see the finished product, but I told her that it was finished. She then looked down at it and said to me, "It is not done until it's perfect. You made several mistakes that you could easily go back and fix." And when she said this, I honestly was dumbfounded. I hate the way perfectionists try to force their quirk onto others. I made this blanket for her for free out of my own free time, and that's because, I love her, and I told her that. But she said she knows that and that she loves me for it, but she said she wouldn't be able to use it because she would not be able to focus on anything but the mistakes. I said to her, whatever, and I took the blanket back and said that if she didn't want it, then I would keep it. She then looked surprised and said that she does want it, but she just wants my best work and not something I kind of phoned in. I told her that if she thinks me crocheting a whole blanket and making minimal errors is somehow me just kind of phoning it in, then I would rather just keep the blanket. Well, she is so upset with me and told me that I was acting ridiculous and that it wouldn't take me long to fix it. Now, if you knew anything about crochet, then you know that if I made an error on row 36 out of 1,115, then that is essentially starting over. Anyways, I come to all of you to know if I'm the jerk in this situation, because right now I'm still incredibly pissed. Okay, this is so unbelievably entitled, it really pisses me off. She seriously is getting a free blanket, looks at it and says, this is not up to my standards. You need to go back and fix your mistake right now. And it's like, no man, I'm gonna keep the blanket at this point. Like, what are you talking about? That is so stupid. And this is not some weird quirk about her being a perfectionist. She is just straight up a jerk. I don't think she's a good person, and the fact that she's trying to make you start all over, especially over like an alleged mistake, in my opinion says everything you would ever need to know about this lady. An entitled jerk blocks a petrol station while a long line of people are waiting to fill up their cars. But as he was sitting there laughing with his friend, clearly enjoying our misery, I decided to get some petty revenge by wasting his time in a way that I think he will never truly forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so this was a few years ago. I pulled into my local petrol station and all the pumps were in use. So I pulled up behind one of the pumps, waiting for the van using it to finish and move off. After quite a few minutes, the driver casually strolled out of the shop in no hurry, despite the queue that was building up, and then he just walked to his van. He could see that I and several other vehicles were queuing up to use the pumps. The van driver in the pump next to him was obviously a friend, and when that driver finished up, the two of them stood and had a chat. They were aware of us waiting and were clearly loving the fact that they were holding all of us up, even turning to laugh arrogantly at the guy waiting next to me who called to them to move away from the pumps. This went on for 5 minutes more until they got bored of their silly game and then finally drove off. Now this moron was a plasterer and had his name and phone number written all over his van, and at that point I had a thought, oh boy, I am super petty. So I made a note of all of his details. A few weeks later, I called him up and said that I had bought a house in need of renovation and I needed a quote to board out and skim the entire house. And my god, he was too happy to quote for a big project, assuring me that he was great at his trade and that I could not find a better quote anywhere. We discussed his availability and he was keen to come and look at the job. So I gave him the address of a rundown house a few streets away from me that had recently sold at auction. He knew the property and he had driven past it a few times and noticed that it was up for auction. We then arranged for him to call the following day, and of course I wasn't there. He rang a few times and left a voicemail checking where I was, but eventually I called him back very apologetic, and I said that my husband had fallen off a ladder and I took him to the doctor to take care of him. Now he said okay and that he'll rearrange the visit, so we arranged another time a few days later, and when the next appointment came, I had 2 more messages from him clearly annoyed that I wasn't there again. So I called him back and I apologized, and I said I could totally understand his anger and wasted time. I then said, this reminds me of the time I was sat at a petrol station a few weeks ago and some idiot and his mate stood there having a good old chat while laughing at the drivers waiting to use the pumps. Well, after I said that, I could hear a penny drop, and it was right then that I heard the raging and swearing started, which just sent me off roaring with laughter. I had made my point and it was fabulous. I then spent the next few weeks blocking various numbers, sending me awful text messages, but eventually he got bored of that. But in the end and either way, day, I hope he learned that his actions will definitely have consequences. Wow, what a piece of garbage. That guy literally sat there and was like, oh yeah, let's just chat and block this entire gas station. It's like, dude, what are you doing? People are trying to get gas. Get out of the way. That is some really serious scumbag behavior, and the fact that he felt emboldened to do that says everything that you need to know about this guy. So honestly, I love the fact that you wasted his time, even if it was just for a little bit. He absolutely had this coming, especially if he thinks he can play stupid games and not expect to receive stupid rewards. A psycho tow truck company owner said that she would dump my car back into the ditch they helped me get out of, all because they were demanding I pay a $36 payment. And despite the fact that I said that my insurance would pay for it, while also having written proof that it would get paid, this psycho Karen decided that wasn't nearly enough, as she went to a level of crazy that I've truly never seen in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so due to some recent snow, my car slid off my driveway and got stuck in a ditch next to my house. I contacted Insurance Roadside Assistance, and they picked a random local tow truck company to wrench my car out of the ditch. Now, I carefully checked with insurance before the rescue to verify that it was not an emergency, and I verified that it was completely covered by insurance. In fact, my insurance sent me a written verification that it was covered. The tow truck driver arrived and got my car unstuck. After he was complete, I asked if he needed anything, and he said he needed to check on payments. I then told him that I had a written statement showing that it was supposed to be covered by insurance. Well, he got back in his truck and drove away, and so I assumed that everything was good, but unfortunately, it definitely wasn't. About 15 minutes later, I get a call from the tow company owner demanding that I pay $36 or they weren't going to release my car. Now, I was really confused because my car was parked in my driveway and the driver was long gone. So I said, well, my insurance says it's covered, so please send me an invoice and I can send that to them. Well, the owner then started screaming at me. She said, that is not how this works. You must pay the remainder or we aren't leaving. And I was like, ma'am, your driver is gone. She then responded just as angry. He's not supposed to do that. He will come back and block your driveway until you pay $36. You cheapskates make me sick. He will come back and put your car back in the ditch. Now at this point, I was kind of stunned and I laughed at her. And I said to her, sure, you can come back and put my car in the ditch, which made her so mad that she hung up on me. A little bit later, I get a text with an invoice showing I owed an additional $125 for a waiting fee. I then texted her back asking where the driver was, as I was waiting because my property was completely empty. She then claimed that GPS and the dash cam proved that he was in my driveway, but I responded by saying, well, he must be invisible because no one's here, and then she just stopped responding. Now fast forward and my insurance eventually agreed to pay the $36 balance. Now I've gotta say, I have never had a small business owner behave this way to me. I sent in bad reviews to all the sites I could find, and I did a complaint to the Better Business Bureau, because people like this truly are incredibly toxic. Good lord, I can't imagine having a small business like that, where you literally threaten the people that you're trying to work with. Like seriously, that is so weird and toxic, it's not even funny. She even tried to add on a waiting fee as if you did anything wrong. And it's like, lady, what are you talking about? I have it in writing that you guys are gonna get paid. So yeah, the way she acted was insane, and I just can't imagine ever treating a customer like this. Am I the jerk for refusing to fund my boyfriend's genius idea, as he believes he's about to invent a new color and he needs $4,000 so that he can make that happen? Because after I denied giving him that money, he said that I'm not only unsupportive and afraid of innovation, but also that I'm crushing his dreams of changing the world. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female and I've been dating my 29-year-old boyfriend for 3 years. And while he's always been a bit wacky, I usually find it kind of endearing. This time, however, he's really outdone himself. A few weeks ago, he told me he had a groundbreaking idea that would change humanity forever. Entertaining him, I asked him what it was, and his answer was that he was going to invent a new color. Before we go any further, it's important to note that we are both college graduates. I graduated in biochemistry last year, and my boyfriend in philosophy a few years before, which makes this all the wilder, I guess. I tried to gently point out that colors exist as part of the visible spectrum of light, so unless he was about to discover some new wavelength, this might not be possible in the first place. But he just waved me off, calling me close-minded and saying that he was enlightened in a way that you'll never be. At first, I just nodded and let him ramble about his supposed vision, but then he told me that he needed funding to start his research. Specifically, he wanted me to give him $4,000 so he could buy supplies, including advanced art tools and a lab coat, because apparently scientists wear them so it would make him feel smarter. And best of all, wait for it, he wants a trip to the desert because he thinks the pure sunlight will inspire him. Well, I told him absolutely not. I'm saving for grad school, and even if I were weren't, I'm not dropping thousands of dollars on his whatever this is. He then got mad at me, saying I didn't believe in him or his potential to revolutionize human perception. He even accused me of being jealous that he had a world-changing idea and I didn't. It got really heated and he ended up saying a lot of things about using my card as he knew the details anyways. For reference, he's been unemployed for a while now, while I've got a regular job. I ended up saying some things I do regret, but a lot of it was in retaliation. Now he's sulking and telling everyone that I'm unsupportive and afraid of innovation. His friends are backing him up, saying I should be encouraging his creativity instead of crushing his dreams. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Am I somehow in the wrong for not funding his quest to invent a new color? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, your boyfriend's an idiot. I'm just gonna say that first and foremost. This guy wants to be like, oh yeah, this new color's gonna change the world. But it's like, dude, what are you talking about? Even if there is some new color, it's not gonna change anything. The average person, namely myself, would look at it and be like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I would go back to being like, okay, how am I gonna make rent? It's like, dude, what are you on about? And the fact that he's trying to guilt trip you because you don't believe in his vision, it's like, seriously, if you're so inspired, then you can use that vision to get a job and earn that $4,000 yourself. Why on earth should your partner be responsible for your stupid ideas? Especially when they're so irrational, like going into the desert for inspiration. So no, you're not the jerk. It's obvious your boyfriend is having some kind of midlife crisis, and that, in my opinion, has absolutely nothing to do with you. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that her wedding plans are completely unrealistic? Because after I refused to give her $15,000, and after I called her out in front of the family, my parents say that I'm in the wrong. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my sister has always been the princess type. Ever since we were kids, she's talked about her dream wedding. She wanted a castle, a horse-drawn carriage, and the kind of dress that would make Disney jealous. I always thought that she would scale things down when the time came, but now she's engaged, and honestly, she's doubling down on the whole fairy tale thing. The wedding is planned for next summer, and she's going all out. She's booked a venue that's basically a small castle, has been talking about a custom dress that's over $10,000, as well as live entertainment and elaborate catering. When I asked her how she was planning to afford this, she casually said that she's relying on a little help from family to make it happen. And by family, she meant me. A couple of weeks ago, she sat me down and told me how much it would mean to her if I could help out. Then she asked for $15,000. I almost choked on my coffee. She knows I've been saving up for years to buy a house, and I'm finally getting close. I told her I couldn't give her that much, but could maybe help with a smaller amount, like maybe $2,000 at most. Well, she was really upset and said that wouldn't even cover the deposit for the castle venue. Things then got worse last weekend at a family dinner. She was going on and on about her plans, how the carriage is going to have flowers draped over it, how she's hiring a designer to do a once-in-a-lifetime dress. I don't know if it was the stress of hearing the price tags or just how casually she was talking about money she didn't have, but I finally snapped. I told her that her wedding plans were completely unrealistic unless she planned to go into massive debt or win the lottery. Well, she got really quiet and then started crying, and then she left the table. And at this point, my mom and dad were glaring at me. And after dinner, my mom told me I was way out of line. She said I should have kept my opinions to myself and that I crushed my sister's dream. Since then, my sister hasn't really been talking to me. My mom keeps calling me and saying that I should apologize, but I feel like I'm not wrong. Weddings are expensive, and if she can't afford this level of extravagance, isn't it better for her to realize that now instead of relying on others? I know I could have handled it better, but I feel like she put me in an impossible position. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, your sister is seriously immature. For reference, the sister is 27 years old. So this is far beyond that age where it's like, okay, let's have a princess wedding. Like, does she not realize she just doesn't have the budget to take care of this? Even with a little help from family, it's just not gonna happen. Not to mention that she literally was like, okay, I need $15,000 from you, please and thank you. Like, what is going on? That's not okay. That's not a small amount. That's a huge amount of money. Like, $2,000 really would be like the most I would be willing to give, because what she's trying to get together is honestly insane. It's something out of somebody's like fever dream, and it's just not realistic. So no, you're not the jerk for not wanting to fund this, and for calling her out and being like, listen, you can't afford this, because the way she's acting, in my opinion, is super spoiled and very entitled, and you do not deserve to put up with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for canceling my best friend's appointment, all because she still owes me money from the last appointment she never paid me for? Here's what happened. Okay, so I have a friend who's 23 years old, let's call her Jane for the sake of the story, who owes me, a 22-year-old female, a lot of money. There are multiple reasons she owes me money, but the main reason is because she is yet to pay for a service I provided. For reference, I'm a hairstylist, and I took in my friend Jane for an emergency appointment. I usually use a booking software that takes down client card details details, which gives me the option to charge the card if they refuse to pay after the service for no valid reason. Because this was a trusted friend, I took her in for an emergency hair service when she needed her hair done for her birthday, and I did not use my booking software because I assumed that my friend would pay me. I often ask for payment after the service, so when I did this, Jane said, "Oh, I thought it would be my birthday present," to which I made very clear during the appointment, as I let her know she'd get the friends and family discount at my salon, which she was thrilled about. I explained and she understood that I had to charge her for my services as it is my job. However, she gets paid tomorrow. Well, I forgave her as Jane is a very close friend of mine, and she told me that she would pay me back. Well, a week goes by and still I don't have a payment, so I messaged her asking about it. She says she can't do it right now, but she will do it real soon. This then goes on for a while, and eventually I forget about it as the service was not crazy expensive and it was just a root retouch. However, she's now asking for another emergency appointment, but I state that she has to book through my booking website. She then told me that it was urgent and that she cannot wait longer than 48 hours. And for reference, my website also does not let anyone book less than 48 hours in advance. Now, it's important to note that she has yet to pay me for my last service, so I refuse her, and it's caused a very heated debate in our friendship. She promises to pay me back after the appointment again, but I don't trust her, as she has a pile of debt to me now, and now to my business as well. So honestly, I really need to know, am I the jerk for not letting her have another emergency appointment? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. For starters, this does seem like a lose-lose situation, where no matter what you're gonna do, it's gonna suck for either party. But in my opinion, I think you need to stick to your values and say, no, you need to pay me first before anything else. Especially for a friend like this. Like, she clearly was using you and was like, oh, I thought this was like a birthday present or something like that. Despite the fact that you saying, no, it's not, and you're getting a discount. And you know what? It's already hard enough for people to make a living doing something they love on their own. So for her to turn around and be like, oh, don't worry about it, I'll pay you back later when I get paid, and then not pay you ever, like, that is crazy, and I would be so upset if I was in your shoes. So in my opinion, no, you're not the jerk. Anyone who's upset about you not giving this emergency appointment clearly doesn't work for themselves, and they clearly don't respect you as a business person. Because what Jane did, in my opinion, was completely unacceptable, and you deserve to get paid way before she ever gets another appointment. An entitled jerk talks down to me as I'm cleaning his table for the restaurant they were eating at, as he called me a phrase that truly insulted me on a deep personal level. But after I demanded that he apologize to me right now, he decided to mock me further, forcing me to escalate in a way that he truly did not expect. And I'm now honestly so glad that I got those guys kicked out. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened last Saturday, and I'm still mentally replaying the interaction, so I decided to write it out to try and move my brain on from it. I'm a 42-year-old male, and I work as a server at a busy neighborhood bar with good food near a major sports arena in a top 3 United States city. A professional hockey game had just ended at around 10 o'clock p.m. on Saturday, and as expected, we got the third rush of the night within 30 minutes of the final whistle. The table nearest the door had opened up, and it being the only available table in the room, combined with the fact that our establishment does not generally need a host, so we don't have one, it was quickly beset upon. Now, as it was still covered in empty glassware and food debris, I rushed to clear it and clean the tabletop to make room for the people that would be sitting there. A group of 4 men in their mid to late 40s who had ordered drinks at the bar stood over as I cleaned it, and I said to them, just give me 1 second to clean this table for you guys. Well, the conversation that followed is the most ludicrously rude interaction I've ever had with a guest in my 29 years of the business. This guest laughed at his buddies and said, yeah, clean my table, loser. Although he didn't say loser and instead called me the B word. And by B word, I mean the common phrase used for female dog, if you know what I mean. Now, at this point, I was finishing cleaning the table, and I said to him, excuse me, do you want to rephrase that? Well, this guy was still laughing. He looked at me and said, yeah, clean my effing table. And then he called me the B word again. Now, I was finished cleaning and the guest was now seated, so I said to him, did you seriously just call me that twice within seconds of meeting me? This jerk then said, yeah, man, it was just a joke. I responded by saying, calling someone that you don't know that name isn't a joke. That's not even remotely funny. The guest tried to say that it was all good, but I said to him, no, it's not all good. Do you want to stay in this bar? Because if you do, I'm going to need an apology out of you. Am I clear? Now, this guy reacted quite strongly. He looked at me and said, whoa, are you serious right now? But I responded and said, do I look like I'm joking? You are out of here if I don't get a sincere apology out of you this second. This guy then responded by saying, wow, man, I was laughing the whole time. It was clearly a joke. You've got to be effing kidding me. But I said to him, well, the joke is that you called the grown man clearing your table the B word in front of all of your buddies not once but twice. Now look me in the eyes and apologize apologize right now. At this point, this guy's leaning forward and is making the most sarcastic beg for forgiveness hands I've ever seen in my life. And then he looked at me and said, "I'm so effing sorry." And you could clearly tell he was mocking me. At this point, I looked over to the friend who was still present and I asked them, "Is this your friend? Do you support this kind of crap?" This guy, who is clearly uncomfortable at this point, says, "Hey, I just met him tonight, but he seems like an okay guy." Now, I'm a fairly new employee who has had some awkward interactions with a very small number of guests that turned out to be longtime regulars. Our regulars, of whom there are hundreds going back 15 years, are extremely protective of this bar, which is an amazingly warm and welcoming neighborhood joint with a truly beautiful family vibe that can sometimes get a bit rambunctious. So you can say I'm a bit on eggshells about my job security, and I let that fear of losing what is an amazing job stop me from just throwing these jerks out myself, for the sole fear that they might have the owners on speed dial and be able to manipulate the facts against me. I went ahead and I reported my interaction to management, stating that I thought I would be able to handle them myself going forward. Well, management promptly ejected them from the building, which I'm grateful for as my superior had my back. These jerks tried to stop me to offer a proper sincere apology, which was obviously way too late by that point. I got over it and I finished the shift, but you know what really sucks? It's days later and I can't help but feel awful for probably appearing to them that I had to go get someone else to kick them out. So to the guys who treated me like that, you absolutely are the worst. If I had worked here for longer than 6 months, I would have been hustling your butt out the door myself without ever having a single thought about it. Wow, this is honestly so unbelievably toxic. These guys had massive guts to sit there and be like, "Yeah, clean my table, you idiot." I mean, what were they thinking? Like, that is so rude. If you were friends with these people, that would be way different. But you literally have only just met them and it's like, okay, this is an awful first impression. So sure, you had to get somebody else to kick them out, but from the sounds of it, it seems like there's a lot of things that you don't know about that restaurant, because it sounds like this is one of those like legacy restaurants and you can't just kick out anyone willy-nilly. Like, for all you know, that could have been like the owner's son and all of his friends or something like that. So truly, I think getting somebody to help you out and being like, "No, these people suck and they have to go," that really was like the best decision, because these guys were absolutely out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my brother no to co-signing for a car? Because I am genuinely worried he will ruin my credit just like he's ruined his own. Because right now, even after I told him that I wouldn't help him out, he's saying that I'm an awful sibling, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, so I recently reviewed a text message from my older brother simply stating if I had good credit or not. When I replied to him and answered that I do, he then proceeded to ask me to be a co-signer on a car, and this was another Mercedes that he wanted to get. He has wasted so much money on different cars over the years and has put himself into debt because of it, so much so that he had to file for bankruptcy. He has a child now and his current Mercedes is too small to be a dad car, so he wants to upgrade to another one. Now, as much as I want to be a good sister and try and help him out, I told him no, as his financial track record is concerning. Now, let me tell you, he's got a great job and makes good money. He's in the trades, and I'm a teacher and I make far less money than him, but I'm good with my finances and I still have student loans and everything else. When I told him no, he got aggravated and has been pretty much annoyed with me ever since then, saying it's awful of me to not help him out when I have a good credit score. But the fact of the matter is, I'm scared that he will ruin it. I have my own bills to pay. I need to keep my credit up to par for when I'm ready to buy property, since I've been saving to do so. And when I explained this to him, and the fact that I do have so many other monthly bills that I pay, on top of having to pay off student debt, he still couldn't comprehend my reasoning and sort of just scoffed it off. So seriously, am I the jerk for telling him no for my own financial safety? Because right now I'm honestly incredibly annoyed. No, you're not the jerk here. This is so weird. This guy ruined his credit, so now he's going to anybody with a pulse and he's just like, "Okay, I need this new Mercedes. Please sign this car off." And the fact that he's trying to like guilt trip you and be like, "Wow, that's really awful that you're not doing this for me." Like, no, of course I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. You've worked hard to build your credit up. And the fact that this guy wants to ruin it, and yes, he is going to ruin it, in my opinion, shows how selfish he really is. So no, you are not the jerk here. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. My entire office has been dealing with a mysterious food thief, as all of our food and leftovers in the company fridge has been constantly going missing every single week. So I decided to get some petty revenge by not only exposing exactly who was stealing everybody else's food, but once caught, this thief ended up quitting just a few months later, as the shame of his crime simply could not be handled. Here's what happened. Okay, so my office has a classic problem: the mysterious food thief. Over a period of a few weeks, weeks last year, my food and that of some of my other coworkers had been disappearing from the fridge. I'm not talking about accidental oops, I thought it was mine situations. We're talking whole donuts, sandwiches, and even my leftovers have been vanishing. After losing one too many things, I decided to take matters into my own hands with a harmless but effective petty revenge plan. I bought a jelly-filled donut, the kind that's impossible to resist, but also I doctored it up just a little bit. Using a syringe, I carefully injected it with a good amount of bright blue food coloring. Not enough to alter the taste, but enough to make a statement. After that, I left the baked donut in the fridge and then I waited. Well, sure enough, by the afternoon, the donut was gone, and I didn't have to wait long for the thief to reveal themselves. One of my coworkers showed up to a meeting with a suspiciously blue tongue, stained lips, and a big blue smudge on his hand. He tried to act casual, but the evidence was glaring. Now, the best part is that the whole office noticed. People started whispering, and the culprit eventually tried to play it off as a weird reaction to candy, but nobody bought it when everybody realized he was the thief. Well, the thief then quit after a couple of months because no one would talk to him anymore, and I'm happy to say that even though I didn't have to confront him directly, I now get to finally enjoy my donuts in peace. Oh my gosh, I can't stand people who do this. Seriously, if you have an office and you have some kind of fridge that people put their stuff in, it's rule of thumb that you don't touch anyone else's crap. Like, this is so annoying, it's not even funny. The fact that this guy did this and felt emboldened to do so, in my opinion, says everything you need to know about his character. Like, it is so easy not to steal other people's food. All you have to do is bring your own stuff and then leave it as it is. So truly, I love the way you handle this, and I love the fact that you expose this guy to everybody in the office. And the fact that he quit all because of the repercussions of this, in my opinion, makes this whole situation even better. Am I the jerk for telling my sister not to even bother coming to my wedding after she said she was offended by the way she wasn't as involved as she would like to be? Because right now I'm honestly still frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm a 24-year-old male and I excluded my 28-year-old sister from my wedding, but not my other sister who's 26, and this honestly has upset my entire family. Now, I'm getting married to a really wonderful man who we will call Max for the sake of the story, and this is all happening in the summer, but my sister will not be in my wedding. Here's exactly what's going on. Now, I have two sisters who we will call Macy and Penny. We grew up close, but with no brothers, I felt excluded. My sisters would go on girls' trips and I wasn't invited. My father isn't in the picture, so mostly my mom would leave me with my grandma. And I think that sisters and brothers are very different, because while Penny and Macy would fight, they would always make up. Penny is a lesbian, and as a gay man, we've bonded more as adults. And overall, I love both my sisters even if the relationships are painful. About 7 years ago, Macy married her fiance, who we will call Michael. Penny was her maid of honor, and Michael asked me to be his groomsman. Her wedding party included our female cousin, but also Penny's partner, who we will call Joanne. Now, Max and I were together, but he was not a part of the wedding. I barely knew Michael, and all of his groomsmen were strangers. I told my sister that I would rather support her on her wedding day, but she said that isn't the way things are done. Now, she was right, but I saw no reason why it needed to be gendered, because I really should have just stood with my family. But she was the bride, so I didn't bother about it again. Now, I was excluded from everything leading up to the wedding. I missed the bridal parties, the dress selection, and I missed the bachelorette activities. Not to mention the fact that on that day, I had to leave my house and get ready at her fiance's hotel because she didn't want any men around while she was getting ready. 2 years later, Penny married Joanne, and of course, Macy was the maid of honor, but I also got to be the bride's man and was with her every step of the way, and partners were excluded on both sides. Before the wedding, Macy kept making snide remarks about how I didn't belong there. There was no bachelor parties, but I think that Macy thought without a groomsman shouldn't be in the wedding, but I was invited to Penny's bachelorette party much to Macy's chagrin. Now, Max and I are getting married, and we weren't going to have a wedding party, but Max insisted because he's close to his brother, who we will call Marshall. And when I made Penny my maid of honor, Macy was offended. When I told her that she was going to stand with Max and Marshall because my best friend, who we will call Cole, is also going to be in it, she was furious. Macy said she needed to be there for her baby brother's big day, and she felt slighted. But I told her that if I had to stand with strangers, then she had to. Besides, we needed even numbers. Well, my mother took her side when she complained, and even my grandmother called me spiteful. Well, in a fit of rage, I shouted that if Macy had a problem, then she didn't need to show up to my wedding. Now, should I relent and let her stand with me? I feel like this is a total double standard, because when Macy was married, the answer was, well, it's her wedding. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, maybe I love chaos, but trust me, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. It really seems like Macy wants to treat you like garbage and be like, well, it's my wedding, I get to decide who does stuff and who doesn't. But then when that same kind of strategy is brought against her, suddenly this is some kind of massive insult. It's like, seriously, this is so stupid it's not even funny. Because Macy started this entire thing. Because if Macy didn't do anything wrong with having her wedding the exact way that she wanted, then guess what? You can claim the same thing. And from the sounds of it, Macy sounds like that one sibling that just honestly is really not that nice. She is clearly at odds with you and treats you way different than Penny. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. Macy dug her own grave the second she treated you weirdly, and in my opinion, I think it's about time that you return the favor. An entitled jerk gets on my laptop after I step away to use the bathroom, but when I got back and confronted him, demanding that he get away from my stuff, he claimed that he was just looking for games in my absence. And I'm honestly still blown away by this guy's guts to pull something like that. Here's what happened. So a little over a decade ago, I had frequently gone to this one place to hang out with some friends each week. One time, I brought my personal laptop to do some story writing, and this was an outdated model, so I didn't really have any games on it, which is not a problem. I only used it for writing, emails, and web browsing, and I used my desktop at home for gaming and all this other stuff. Now, at some point, I got up to use the restroom, and when I got back, I saw that there was some guy sitting at my laptop and using it as if he owned it, and this resulted in the following interaction. I look at him and I say, "What do you think you're doing?" This guy looked at me and said, "Oh, I just wanted to play some games." But I responded by saying, "No, get off my laptop." He then looked at me in the most childish way possible and said, "You're supposed to say please." But at this point, I was yelling. I said, "No, that laptop is mine. You cannot use it." He then begrudgingly gets up and steps away, and then actually whines about there not being any games on it. Now, this place was a center for people with autism, and the staff wouldn't let anyone in unless they were registered there. It was a mixed age setting with a group of teenagers and a group of adults, and this guy just so happened to be in the teenagers group. But regardless, I'm glad I came back when I did, because who knows what he could have done to my laptop if I wasn't around. Wow, that is crazy to me. This is like all of my worst nightmares summed up in one situation. You step away to go to the bathroom, you leave your stuff in a spot that you thought nobody's gonna touch, and then suddenly this guy's over there and he's trying to poke around on your laptop. Like, seriously, what's going on right now? This is not normal behavior. And the fact that he's trying to be like, "Oh, you're supposed to say please." It's like, dude, get away from my crap. What are you doing? This doesn't belong to you and I don't want you touching it. So good for you for stepping up and getting this guy away from your property, because what he was trying to do, in my opinion, was completely out of line. Am I the jerk for not siding with my wife when our daughter got hurt by stepping on a Lego? Because right now, I feel that she's being incredibly immature and very self-absorbed. But at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Last night, my daughter was playing with Legos before bedtime in the living room. And this morning, when our daughter woke up, she walked into the living room rug and suddenly began crying out, hopping on one foot. It was still early morning and we were a bit groggy. Our daughter then hopped to her mom looking for comfort. Instead of consoling her, my wife kept insisting that she wasn't hurt, saying that she just tripped on the rug. But our daughter kept saying that she stepped on something, but my wife kept disregarding it. Now, I was quiet about the situation until this point where I stood up for our daughter and said that I think she stepped on something because she was playing with Legos last night and the rug is thick. Well, I looked at our daughter's foot and it was bleeding. So I cleaned it up and I put a band-aid on it. I then put on a funny video of people stepping on Legos to cheer our kid up and show her that it happens to other people too. After this, my wife storms upstairs angrily, and I wait a while to see if she's gonna come back, but she doesn't. I decide to put our daughter in the tub and then go check on my wife. When I check on my wife, I can see that she's brooding and very angry. I asked her what's wrong, but she just denied that anything was wrong. I then asked her why she stormed upstairs if nothing is wrong, and she then proceeded to say that we were ganging up on her. She said I provoked our daughter to go against her, but I told her all I was doing was acknowledging that our daughter was hurt when she was denying it. She then said that I should have never come upstairs and make her angry, but I told her she was acting childish, and the situation was about helping our daughter and not about her. We then began arguing and our daughter was now watching. Noticing this, I shut down the argument and I took our daughter back to the bathroom to continue her bath and to console her. I now feel like I'm in the doghouse for no reason. I understand my wife may feel like it's us against her and probably feels isolated, but I personally feel in this situation, she is being immature and self-absorbed. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, your wife is being super weird. Is she seriously looking at your daughter and trying to be like, well, you didn't actually hurt yourself, you just tripped on the rug. Meanwhile, her foot's bleeding and she's crying. Like, clearly there's something wrong here. Like, why would you not make that connection? And just because you clearly pointed it out and said, oh, it's totally fine, you just stepped on a Lego, and you tried to like make it better, doesn't mean that you're somehow ganging up on your wife. Like, that is such a crazy overreaction. So no, you're definitely not the jerk here. Your wife is being super obnoxious malicious, and in my opinion, that is incredibly annoying. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that I will be putting him in a nursing home and that I hope he passes away there alone and afraid? Because after the way he treated me recently, I'm honestly still incredibly upset and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I came out to my dad and he exploded on me. And it made me bring up all the terrible things that he did to me. And at the end of it, I told him that I put him in a nursing home where I hoped he would pass away alone. Now, you might be wondering, how did we get here? Well, for starters, I'm a 22-year-old female and I've been dating a woman for about 5 years now. Despite my hesitation, I told my father, who's 61 years old, because I still have a semblance of affection for him and I will be buying a ring very soon. Well, he reacted as expected and went on a rant about how terrible my sexuality was and how I was faking it just to piss him off. Now, I'm not here to argue about who I'm attracted to and why, but it came around to the point where I told him I would bring my girlfriend just to try and prove it. But that's when he said something along the lines of, "If you show up, I'll beat both of you." To which I said, "Okay, well, I'll return the favor." He then got really offended, extremely angry as per usual, and went on a rant about how disrespectful I was, and telling me that he deserved my respect as my father. Well, when he said this triggered some very ugly memories for me. I can't quite go into detail, but he's always been an angry person. Scary one moment, then love bombing the next. All of my teenage years, my sister and I put up with him with the hope that he'd change back to my loving childhood father. But after 13 marriages, 12 children, and the only 2 kids he raises are taught to fear him, it clearly didn't work. At this point, I was really tired, so I told him I didn't want him to attend any more of my events, including walking me down the aisle one day. I then told him that he was a terrible person and didn't deserve the love of a child, and that I wish he had left us like the other 10 kids. That I hoped he would pass away sad and alone in a nursing home. My mother then called a couple of times, asking me to apologize because he lost his daughter and he was mourning me, and that I shouldn't have said what I said. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation for all the things that went down? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, normally I would be like, listen, you can try and make things better, or at least try to see where he's coming from. But for this guy, honestly, I just don't think that's the case. This guy literally said, "If you come around here, I'm gonna beat up both of you." And it's like, dude, I'm trying to have some kind of relationship with you. I'm trying to have some kind of daughter-father thing going on here. And the second you say you're gonna fight your daughter and her girlfriend, that's the moment where it's like, okay, this is absolutely not okay. But it's also incredibly ironic that in that same breath, he tries to sit there and be like, well, I'm the father, I need respect. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? What kind of respect are you expecting from anyone around you when you treat your own family like garbage, attacking your kid because they came out to you? I know if I was the dad in this situation, I would be honored to have that kind of information. Because let's be honest, I know it's 2025, but it's still very hard for people to come out. Some parents are not understanding, so it can leave kids of these parents completely terrified that they're going to be rejected. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. So this guy has no right to claim any kind of respect all because he's your father, if he himself can't even give you the baseline level of respect that's needed to try and claim that he's your father in the first place. So no, you're not the jerk at all. This guy sucks, and the fact that your mom's taking his side also means, in my opinion, that she sucks too, because you did not deserve to be treated that way, and he is absolutely 100% at fault. A psycho Karen threatens to call the cops on me for parking in front of her house, claiming that this is the 3rd time she's told me not to park there, despite the fact that I've never been by her house ever in my life. And I've honestly never run into someone as crazy as this lady, because she absolutely was out of her mind. Here's what happened. So I'm a 6'3", 250-pound male, and I work at a job that requires me to care for lawns. The way my work for my company operates is that I will pull up to a customer's house, usually in front of the lawn section. I will need to make sure that, for one, I'm not blocking a fire hydrant or a mailbox, as this is quite literally illegal, and I would get into a massive amount of legal trouble, even if I was just sitting in front of them for less than a few minutes. Secondly, I need to make sure that I'm not blocking the customer's driveway or the neighbor's driveway, while also ensuring that the door to access my equipment is on the correct side, and this would be preferably away from the street. I'm also only allowed around 10 minutes for anything under 5,000 square feet. In total area, I usually have about 25 stops in a day. And yes, this is as hectic as it sounds. Usually, I start work at around 7 o'clock in the morning, and I don't finish until 4:30 or even 5. And the worst part is that my company is currently in its slow season, so being fast and efficient is crucial if you want to get home at a decent time. Usually, this has the added effect of doing each stop as quickly as I can, since I know that if I don't walk fast enough and at a correct pace, I will slowly start to fall behind. To be clear, I walk, climb hilly terrain, climb stairs, and push a 20 to 40 pound seat spreader on just about about every type of rough terrain you can think of. And this comes with the side effect of walking around 10 to 20 miles a day. And my God, how I wish this was an exaggeration. As I pulled my work truck into the cul-de-sac, I noticed that I had two stops almost right next to each other on the same street and on the same side of the road. This is uncommon, but does happen from time to time and is greatly appreciated because it means less driving throughout the day for me. The two houses were right next to each other, except for their neighbor whose house looked smashed in between the two much larger homes. So this meant that I wouldn't have to put my equipment up after I was finished with the first house, and I could instead directly move over to the other house, saving somewhere around 15 minutes of load and unload. The first house had a fire hydrant in front of it, and the other had a mailbox for the neighbor. Now the Karen's house, who is the Karen of this story, had nothing in front of it and also conveniently had a gravel section where one could park a car off the street. However, because I've been in situations where customers don't like us using their gravel patches, I just went ahead and I parked next to it on the street itself. Fast forwards, and I'm heading from the first house to the other client's home after finishing up, and I see a small woman, maybe about 140 pounds, with a very annoyed expression on her face. And it was at this moment I knew I was in for a world of hurt, as this lady caused me problems that I truly never expected. Now, at first I wasn't expecting anything from her, and I thought that she wanted to ask me a question about what I was doing to her neighbor's lawn. I mean, this does happen a lot. But instead, I was almost immediately yelled at for apparently parking my truck in front of her house for the third time. She also said comments such as, "How many times do I have to tell you idiots not to park here?" Now, I've been working with this company for almost a year, and rarely, outside of a few brief conversations, I've never had a problem with anyone. And if someone asked me to not park somewhere, I would make a note in the instructions and make sure that future techs didn't repeat the same mistakes. As well, sometimes people ask you to move out of the way or to a different spot because they are picky about parking spots, as well as idling trucks on their lots. Again, this takes all of like 5 seconds and it isn't a big deal in the slightest. So, after taking in her near nonsensical rambling and yelling, I simply replied by saying, "Of course, that's not a problem, ma'am. I'll make a note in the instructions so this doesn't happen again. I'm sorry for the inconvenience." She then replied to me and said, "Well, good. Make sure you don't park in front of my house anymore." After a few more back and forth of this, where she is basically just saying, "Don't park here anymore," she then walks away, and I think to myself, okay, that's the end of it, right? At this point, I can see that the customer's yard is small, and I think that this yard will take maybe 5 minutes tops. And this is where I think I messed up, because she never asked me to move to a different place and only asked me to not park there next time. So I figured I could go and crack out that lawn too, and thus went off to do exactly that. Because I was a bit behind in my schedule, I very stupidly thought that putting everything back in my truck, only to then take it out again, was unnecessary, and I wouldn't be more than a few minutes, so it should be fine, right? Well, after I was done with that lawn, which took a total of 6 minutes maybe, I came and loaded up my equipment, which only took about 30 seconds, and then I sat back in my truck and started to print out the receipts for the client's lawns. And as I'm doing this, the Karen comes back up to me, but this time she's on the phone with someone and she is visibly pissed. Now, when I say she was angry, I am not joking either. She looked like an over-aggressive chihuahua when it's angry, and she was actually shaking from anger, I can assume. She started to scream at me this time though, which really caught me off guard because again, I'm not on her property, only in front of it. Before she could start her ranting, I called out with my dumb smile and said, "Don't worry, I'm printing the receipts and then I'm leaving. Just give me 30 seconds. Well, this was absolutely not the correct thing to say. She rushed up to the side of my truck with a face that looked like she would end my life if given the chance. She started flying off the handle and screaming loudly, "No, you will move now. Not later, not in a minute, right now. This is the third time I've talked to you about doing this, and I won't stand for it anymore. I shouldn't have to waste my precious time for a third time just because an idiot like you can't pay attention." Now me, being very confused, just replied back by saying, "I'm sorry, ma'am, that you've gone through that, but this is the first time I've ever been to your neighbor's house. You may have spoken with a different technician." Well, before I could continue, she cuts me off, shaking even harder somehow and screaming at me, No, I don't care if this is your first time here. This is unacceptable. I don't pay for your service and you shouldn't be parked in front of my house." At this point, I'm slowly cluing in to her slight insanity, and I got out of my truck to go and deliver the receipts, which meant that I had to get closer to her as she was standing right next to my truck. She then yelled at someone, who I assume was a support person from my company, and started screaming, "Oh my God, sir, he got out of the truck and he's approaching me aggressively." Now at this point, I just rolled my eyes and I quickly went to deliver the first receipt. Because I had to cross by her to get to the other house, I heard her once again screaming like a banshee. She was saying to me, "You will not leave later, you will leave right now." Well, as calmly as I could, I said to her, "Ma'am, please calm down. I'm just gonna hang these receipts on the doors and then I'll leave. Look, you're so angry that you're literally shaking. Just calm down for like a second and then I'll leave." Well, she did not not like this answer and went on about how I was being rude and aggressive with her. And then out of nowhere, she tells me, "I will not calm down. How dare you? You are leaving right now or I am calling the police." I let out a sigh and I hopped into my truck, still holding the receipt, and turned it on to leave, all while she stared daggers at me, still shaking like crazy. I literally just did not have time for any of this. Now, I will admit that I was a little bit petty here because I looked her in the eyes, grinned with my widest smile, and then I waved at her and I said, "Have a great day, ma'am." And I said that as sarcastically as I could, and then I sped off. Now, this happened so quickly that I can only initially describe it as sudden Karen whiplash. I never thought that this could happen to me, especially with how little I interact with customers. I was legitimately so baffled with what happened that it took me about an hour before I realized I had actually encountered a Karen in the wild. Oh my gosh, I cannot stand when people act like this. It really is insane in my opinion. When will people like this learn that yes, people can park in front of your house? They can put their cars on the public road just like anybody else. The fact that they feel the need to be like, "Wow, you can't park in front of my house on this public street." It's like, no, actually I can do that. If I'm not blocking the driveway, your house, or your mailbox, or like a fire hydrant like this guy describes, then guess what? Legally, I have every right to park there. And sure, there's some extenuating circumstance that I don't know about that I'm sure someone can chime in and be like, actually, this is the exception to the rule. But I think generally speaking, we can all agree that, yeah, you can park in front of someone's house if you're not blocking anything. So yeah, this Karen was insane, and the way she was acting, in my opinion, is absolutely unhinged. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled neighbor called the police on my parents' house, all because my parents banned them from hunting on their property, forcing the game warden and the police to show up under the assumption that my parents were poaching deer. Here's what happened. So my parents are retired and live in a little house on about 7 acres of land. It's not a big plot of land, but it is cozy and it's private, just outside of town, and about 6 acres of woods with a creek running through the middle of it. It's really a beautiful piece of ground. With the woods and creek, they get lots of animals going through, including deer. A couple of years ago for Christmas, we got my parents a few trail cameras so they can see what all is going through. My mom likes photography and she's been able to get lots of photos of deers, foxes, wild turkeys, coyotes, and other wildlife going through their yard. Now, as you may imagine, this is some prime hunting land. My husband occasionally enjoys hunting and has from time to time gone down there for deer season, but he doesn't do it frequently. My parents have had several people stop and ask them to hunt on their land, and they always say no. Frankly, it's just barely big enough to legally hunt, and they don't want people all over their property all the time hunting. They have no problem anytime my husband wants to hunt, which is not often, but then again, he is family. Now, there is a neighbor who lives down the road who badly wants to hunt on my parents' land and has been told no repeatedly that they don't allow hunting. Well, last year my husband was in the woods and he found a tree stand installed that wasn't his. Unfortunately, when they checked the trail cams, the SD cards had been removed. Now, there's no proof that it's the neighbor, but they do suspect him. My parents travel a lot, so it would be really easy to do that without their knowledge. Well, my husband took the tree stand down, and I believe the cameras were replaced with new ones that don't need SD cards. Anyways, last month before deer season, the neighbor again asked my parents to hunt, and they said no. They don't allow hunting except their son-in-law if he wants to hunt. Well, my husband decided he would try and get a deer this year for deer season, so he got a deer permit and went on the first day of deer season. And he shot a decent-sized buck within 10 minutes of getting in the woods. My dad was awake and heard the shotgun blast and came out to see if my husband needed help. My husband field dressed the deer, and then my dad, who is the nicest guy you've ever met, got his tractor out of the garage and drove it to the woods. He scooped up the deer in the bucket and put it in the bed of my husband's truck. So hunting ended pretty quickly into the deer season this year. Well, about an hour later, a county sheriff's deputy and a game warden showed up to my parents' house. Apparently, they said that they received a complaint of unauthorized hunting and deer poaching. The officer said that the neighbor called and said that they had been told repeatedly there was no hunting allowed on that ground, and that they had seen someone go into the woods with a shotgun, heard a shot, and then someone with an orange tractor picked up the deer and put it in the bed of a black pickup truck. Now, in our state, if you are caught poaching, they can confiscate your firearm, any hunting gear you have with you, and any vehicle used in the course of hunting and poaching. So the neighbor was really hopeful that they'd take my husband's gun, truck, and my dad's tractor. Well, that's when my dad said, "This is my house and my land, and the orange tractor is mine. The black truck belongs to my son-in-law, who has permission to hunt here anytime he wants." My husband then produced his valid deer tags, and it was all good. So seriously, screw that neighbor, who had to have been watching the woods with binoculars, because there's no way he could have seen all of that from his yard. Yeah, that neighbor's one of those busybodies who doesn't get their way, so he decides, oh yeah, I'm gonna ruin everybody else's fun. And it's like, why, dude? Just go get a life and go somewhere else to hunt? Why does he get to ruin the fun for everybody else all because they didn't get what they wanted? So thankfully, this didn't result in you guys getting in trouble, because I'm pretty sure if this was up to the neighbor, then you guys probably would have lost everything in the process. Am I the jerk for no longer giving support to my wife's family after I became successful with my own company, despite them constantly talking down to me about it? Because right now, I'm not sure if I'm justified in feeling this way. Here's what happened. So my wife and I grew up in a fairly poor environment. Her grandfather had money, but her mom didn't and her sister doesn't. My wife has an incredibly strong work ethic, and she's probably more so defined as a workaholic. When I first met her, I was in trucking, and I was making about $70,000 a year. Since then, I developed a niche for a specialty marketing field and became very good at it. And all of my friends encouraged me to go into business for myself with a marketing company. My wife was fully supportive of this, even after we discussed the financial difficulties that we would have for the first year or so due to having a limited budget. And I made sure that she knew that for some months, I may not get a paycheck from the business, as my salary is only paid monthly. Well, her family, however, were not as supportive. They accused me of neglecting my family, being lazy, and not wanting to work. They would constantly be bringing up the fact that I didn't have a job, because apparently I was always home, despite the fact that I work remote. She would defend me, but they would always ignore it, and continue to call me lazy and a deadbeat for putting my daughter in daycare while I work from home. I was still driving a truck part-time to have steady, reliable income, but it was only half of what I was making on a good week. In the last year, however, I have grown my income from my business beyond what I was making in trucking, and I now have very little overhead. Since we cut costs back when I first started, we realized a lot of things we were paying for we could do without, or found other alternatives, and we never really added those expenses back, so it's like we have significantly more money now. I still drive a semi occasionally for a friend who owns a truck, mainly to keep my CDL active and stay knowledgeable in the industry as a fallback. And you know what? Her family has taken note, and they are constantly asking to go out to eat with us and hang out with us. And then they get mad when I never pay for the meals, the outing, or the vacation, or anything. And you know what? Looking back, I can understand why they never had money. They were living well beyond their means. But if it makes them happy, then it is what it is. I let my wife do whatever she wants with her money, which sometimes includes buying stuff for her family, which I support her doing with her money if that's how she wants to spend it. But I make sure that she knows I don't want a dime of my money going to her family, since they were very unsupportive of what made us our money, and would go as far as to talk down about me for doing what led to our money. Now, with all that in mind, I seriously need to know, am I the jerk for how I feel about my wife's family? Because right now, I don't know if I'm in the wrong. Yeah, your extended family sounds incredibly toxic. These people were trying to be like, wow, you're trying something new? You're doing something for yourself that we couldn't do? How dare you do that? You're lazy and irresponsible. Like, the only reason they're putting you down is because they could never do that themselves. Not in a million years would these people ever get off their butts and do something for themselves in this kind of way. So when they see someone doing that, they immediately go, oh my gosh, you're so terrible. And they find every reason under the sun to criticize and put you down. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because the way your wife's family is treating you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. My messy coworker never cleans up her mess, constantly leaving the microwave and the refrigerator disgusting in our break room. So I decided to get some petty revenge in a way that truly ruined my coworker's day. Here's what happened. So I was an office manager for a small family-owned business. At the time this happened, we only had about 10 people working out of our offices, and some of those people were only in the offices for a few hours a week. But we had 5 people in the office full-time. We have a small break room area with a refrigerator and a microwave, and everyone kept drinks in the refrigerator, and a few people brought lunches occasionally, but only one person brought their lunch every single day. And for the sake of this story, we'll call this person Jessica. Jessica is not their real name. Now, not only would Jessica bring lunch daily, she would also keep all kinds of food in her office and in the refrigerator. The problem was, oftentimes Jessica would leave food in the refrigerator for weeks at a time, and it would go bad and start smelling, and just taking up room needlessly. Now, Jessica was also the primary user of the microwave, but she would never cover her food, and the microwave was always dirty, which was why no one else used it. So I had to set a new rule that mostly affected Jessica. The refrigerator had to be cleaned out every Friday, and you had to take your stuff home or toss it. Also, Jessica was instructed to clean the microwave every day. Now, I was always the last to leave on Friday, so I started tossing Jessica's food on Friday after she left. This got her attention very quickly, and she would take her stuff home from the refrigerator, but she wasn't cleaning the microwave. So fast forward, and once in a great while, I went to use the microwave, and it was disgusting and gross, and Jessica was gone for the weekend. So I ended up cleaning it just so I could pop some popcorn. After I popped my popcorn, I climbed up and unplugged the microwave and put an out-of-service sign on it. The next week, Jessica came in and was shocked when the microwave wasn't working. I told her I tried to make popcorn and it just stopped working. working. She asked when it would be fixed, and I told her it was pretty low priority, so I didn't know. The microwave was left unplugged for over 8 months, and the only person who ever asked about it was Jessica. Well, finally, she mentioned it to the owner, and he came to talk to me. I explained the situation, and he just had a good laugh. Now, Jessica was later let go because of other reasons, but after she was let go, I plugged the microwave back in, and the microwave miraculously was always clean without Jessica using it. And while this is some petty revenge, I'm so glad that it got to her all the way up until she finally got the boot. I love this for so many reasons because honestly, sometimes coworkers can be the absolute worst. They don't clean up after themselves, they treat you like garbage, and it seems like, especially when you have a Jessica in your office, they're always acting on selfish impulse and never care about the general good of everybody else. So personally, I love the petty revenge you enacted on her because if anybody deserved it, it absolutely was Jessica. Am I the jerk for taking my boyfriend and his daughter to my family gathering, knowing that it would make my brother-in-law uncomfortable in some way? Because as a result, this caused some awful drama, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 22-year-old male, and I've been dating my boyfriend, who we will call Mark, for about 2 years now. He has a 7-year-old daughter who we will call Lily, and this is very important for the story. I met Mark 5 years ago when I began babysitting his daughter while he worked. For reference, he's a single dad and the mom passed away. And since Lily and I got along great, I became the sole babysitter when he needed. Now, it was practical because we lived 2 streets apart, and just overall the best choice because I was available, I liked them, and they liked me. But eventually, I fell in love, and I quickly moved in with him and his daughter, to whom I became a second dad. But here's the core of the problem. My 35-year-old sister is married to my 33-year-old brother-in-law, so every family gathering, I see him. He is relatively a nice guy, even though we're not friends, but he also has never met Mark. Now, at first, when I started dating Mark, he didn't want to come to family gatherings. Reason being is that he's not comfortable around people. He is a shy guy, and of course I understood that. But last week, it was my mom's birthday, and she really wanted him and our daughter to be there, so he finally accepted. When my sister and my brother-in-law found out that he would be there, they were mad at me, and I didn't understand why at first. Well, that is until she took me apart and called me insensitive and egotistic towards my brother-in-law for inviting him, even though I had no idea why it made him uncomfortable. Apparently, when he was younger, his parents divorced because his dad cheated with his babysitter, and it caused him to be traumatized. I told her it was BS, that my boyfriend was a part of my life, part of my family, and I wouldn't exclude him just because her husband was uncomfortable. I also reminded her that there was no cheating, no breaking of trust or anything in my relationship with Mark, but she called me insensitive again and then she left. My mom's birthday party was 2 days ago, and my family loved Mark and Lily, but all day my sister and brother-in-law just kept glaring at us and muttering insults or mean comments under their breath. They brought it up again after dinner, but directly to my boyfriend and our daughter this time, telling her that your dad and his boyfriend are disgusting freaks, or that he's a cheater who doesn't care about your dead mom. Now, obviously, my boyfriend and I absolutely lost it against them. Knowing my boyfriend's temper, I told him to take our daughter to the car while I was ripping a new one to my sister. We then very shortly left, after apologizing to my mom for the mess it caused. But now, my family's group chat is divided. Mostly everyone is on our side, but a few of my extended relatives are on my sister and brother-in-law's side, saying that we went too far and should have just ignored them or went back home. Now, I know that my mom asked for them to come, but I'm feeling really guilty that it ruined her birthdays to have this drama. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, I cannot believe anybody's on your sister or brother-in-law's side. Seriously, they're trying to say that you went too far? These people went up to a child and said, yeah, your dad doesn't care about your dead mom and he's a cheater. And it's like, what universe are we living in right now? This is crazy. What is happening here is someone who can't handle their own triggers, and so they make it everybody else's responsibility and punish anybody who doesn't follow exactly what they do. Because if this guy really is traumatized by some like babysitter and like husband relationship, then guess what? Go to therapy and work it out. Don't pin that on your brother-in-law and his new boyfriend and be like, oh yeah, you're part of the problem. You're reminding me of my trauma. You need to stay away from me. It's like, no, I'm just as welcome there as anybody else. I'm not going to modulate my life just because you have some stupid issue that, by the way, has nothing to do with me. And trust me, if I was in your shoes, I would be doing way more than just yelling at these people. The second they got in that kid's face and said any of that is the second they crossed a line that they can never come back from. That is so wildly inappropriate and it is not okay. So these people who yelled at your daughter, as well as anybody agreeing with them, those people suck, and you can know for a fact that they are not real family members. Because your brother-in-law sounds like the most self-centered person on planet Earth. A group of entitled squatters move into my house while I'm away on vacation, claiming that they had a rental agreement with the owner, which is me. But despite the fact that I never agreed to these people living in my property, I decided to get some petty revenge by not only taking back back my property while they were away, but also humiliating them in the process. And I'm honestly so satisfied by the way this turned out, and I really hope I never deal with them ever again. Here's what happened. So I live in a rural area, about 100 kilometers out of a large regional country city area. My town has about 200 people in it, and there is no shops, meaning that the nearest shop is about 20 kilometers away. I also live with my partner, and we don't have any kids yet. Now, 4 couples who are our best friends decided that we should all go on a 4-wheel drive camping holiday together to the top of Australia on Cape York Peninsula. We organize our annual holidays to coincide together, and we would be away for just under 4 weeks. My neighbor also joined us, but his wife does not like camping or 4-wheeling, so she decided to stay at home. About 2 weeks into our trip, we are camping rough just alongside rivers, creeks, or near the beach as we very slowly meander our way up to the tip of Australia. We're doing lots of fishing and swimming in the waterfalls and all kinds of fun things. We also rarely pass through towns, and therefore have no phone reception most of the time. As we near the top, there is a town about an hour from the tip, and we call in there to fuel up and get some more supplies. But it's right when we get there that our phones start going off like crazy, with numerous missed calls, text messages, and all kinds of alerts. My neighbor's wife left many messages stating that someone had moved into my house, a man and a woman, and a small child. She did ask them what they were doing, and they stated they were friends of the owner but couldn't and would not state the owner's name. And fun fact, I'm the owner of the property. I contacted the police, who was a friend of mine, and he said that he would investigate. The following day, I returned to the fuel station, which had the phone reception, which by the way is about an hour away from our campsite, and the sergeant told me that he went to my house, and there was indeed 2 adults and a child now living in my house. In fact, they were unloading a trailer with furniture when he arrived. The male told the sergeant that he had a rental agreement with me, but upon being asked for the rental contract, he became defensive and stated that any issue between them and me was a civil matter, and that the police has no power to investigate. He also stated if pushed, he would claim squatters' rights. And after that, the police left. And it was right about here that I knew my greatest nightmare was coming true, as someone had taken over my house while I was gone, literally when I had absolutely no way of stopping them. The sergeant then told me that he couldn't remove them as it was a civil matter, even though I said they must have broken into the house to gain entry. He apologized and said that his hands were tied, so to speak. He then warned me to be careful, as if we forced them out, they could sue us for a variety of things, so be mindful on how we handle this. He said he was aware this sort of thing had been happening, where squatters prop somewhere until a court orders them out, thus getting 6 to 12 months free accommodation, or alternatively being forced out and suing for damages to get money. I returned to the campsite and I told all my friends. We then spent the next 6 hours talking about how to deal with it. We ran through ideas from dragging them out and throwing them into the road, all the way to taking them to court. Now, going to court could take months, probably 6 to 12 months, so that was not an option. We did, however, finally decide on a course of action. The following day, I contacted my police friend and I asked him what he thought about our plan, and he agreed it was a good decision. In fact, he often wondered why others don't do the same thing, but he reiterated that he could never advise anyone to actually take this course of action, and he was very specific that we must adhere to this plan as I described it on the phone. Don't get impatient and don't deviate to make it quicker. I need to stick to the plan. My neighbor's wife said they weren't damaging or stealing anything yet, so we decided not to return immediately. We continued on our holiday as best as we could, but we did decide to return 4 days early to enact our plan. So that meant we only had 2 more days left at the top before making our way back down south. We didn't want to ruin our much-awaited holiday with all of our lovely friends, as it possibly would be the last time all 4 couples and us could go away together like this. So my partner and I decided to make our way back home as we had planned, and we did so slowly with all the same stops and overnight stays. If we really wanted to, we could have driven back home quickly within 2 days. However, both of us felt that with this in the back of our minds, it did ruin the last half of our holiday, as we were constantly thinking about it and couldn't really enjoy our time away as much as we could have. So finally, we arrived back home, but instead of going to my house, we all go straight to my neighbor's house and we pull up there. Now, this slightly spooked the squatters, as usually you don't see too many vehicles in our road, and not 5 vehicles altogether. We knew they had come outside of my house and were watching us, but we paid them no attention, and after an hour, they seemed to have fallen into a false sense of security and went back inside. We all set up our tents on our neighbor's property, which was about 100 meters away from mine. His property was slightly elevated, so we picked a good spot where we could watch them constantly without being too obvious. The next day, the squatters did nothing and stayed at the house, and the following day, it was more of the same. Now, this was concerning, as our plan could only happen if they left in their car. The third morning, we saw the male leave on his own, and about 30 minutes later, he came back. We think he might have been testing the water, so to speak, just to see if we went over to the property. But of course we didn't, because we realized the female and the kid were still inside. Then at about 11 o'clock in the morning, they all got into the car and drove off. One of our friends discreetly followed behind them, and he was calling us every 15 minutes to update us as to where they were going. After they drove past the shop 20 minutes away, we presumed they were driving to the major town to shop, which is about a 3 to 4 hour return drive. We then went over to my place and removed all their property, taking it out onto the road adjacent to the fence and dumping it right there. I then got a massive big industrial chain that I have in the shed, and I secured it between the posts of my driveway, and the rest of my property is fenced in from the road. We then packed up all the tents in my neighbor's place, and everyone moved into my house. Our other friend had advised us they just hired a trailer, and we wondered if they had decided to move out, and perhaps we acted too quickly, but inevitably we decided we acted correctly. An hour later, he advised us that they were at some other house and loading furniture from that house into the trailer. He thinks they may have been relatives or friends they were previously living there with, as they seemed friendly with each other as they were hugging and talking, all as they bid their farewells. So they were coming back to my house with more furniture. We then took this opportunity to relocate all their possessions further down the road away from my driveway and possible conflict when they return. I borrowed my neighbor's tractor, scooped up all their stuff into the bucket of the tractor, and dumped it 100 meters further down the road. Then I parked just in front of the chain across the driveway with the bucket facing the road, really blocking access to my property now. My neighbor said if they tried to enter with their vehicle, then his tractor was there to let them know that we would pick up their car and flip it back onto the road. Well, they arrived an hour later, they stopped at the pile of possessions out on the road, and the male stormed up to the driveway where all 11 of us were waiting for him. This idiot tried to claim that he had an agreement with the owner until I told him I was the owner. Then he said they had squatters' rights, and we then had a really big verbal argument to which he ended up stating that we acted unlawfully and he was getting the police to ensure that he could get back onto my property. Well, sure enough, the police did arrive, and it was my sergeant friend who didn't pay much attention to this guy's rantings, because instead the sergeant just flipped the whole scenario back onto the squatters. He said to them, well, maybe while you were away, these people have squatted where you claim to live, and as such, it is a civil matter. Take it up with the court. But you cannot go into this property as it is in possession of this person right now. So pack up all your stuff on the side of the road and leave. He tried to have me charged with throwing all of his stuff out of the house onto the road, but the police asked him if he had proof that I did, namely some videos or pictures or something. His wife then falsely claimed that he had seen me do it and actually wanted to make a statement to such. Well, this is when my friend stepped up and advised the sergeant that he had followed them all day and had them all on his dash cam. The sergeant then asked the woman what time she witnessed this, and she said it was just after lunchtime, to which my friend queued up the video to that time and advised her that he had just seen a video of her in a shopping center car park 100 kilometers away at that time, and now he wouldn't believe anything she said. On the other hand, he did say to her, you can make a statement, but I will charge you with lying under oath. Well, after that, they left. A week later, I spoke to the sergeant, who told me he followed them around town for 30 minutes while they seemed to be scoping out other places to move into. But with the police following them everywhere, they drove back to the bigger regional town. However, to hurry them along out of town, the sergeant pulled them over and gave them a traffic ticket for overloading their trailer, as it now had twice as much crap in it. So the best thing we did when we had squatters was to wait until they all leave for shopping or whatever, and then step in and retake possession of my property. It was a lot quicker and cheaper than court, and from now on, whenever we go away on holidays, we are getting friends in the house to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. I literally can't imagine how terrifying that must have been. Like seriously, you guys leave for like what, a few weeks? And these people move in and try to act like they have some kind of agreement with you. It's like, dude, that is not happening. You are not taking my house. So I seriously love the way you handled this. You just waited these idiots out because, you know, eventually they have to leave. They can't stay there forever, especially because it sounds like nobody lives in the town you live in. Like if they really want to go shopping and get good stuff, it sounds like they have to drive a long distance just to make sure they can get their stuff, leaving you plenty of time to get your stuff back. So good for you for getting everything back, because honestly, those people were massive jerks. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for pointing out to my roommate that it's not my fault she can't travel internationally since she chose to go to Canada for university? Because right now she's pissed off that she can't go to the United States with her boyfriend on a trip. And after I shut her down, she has now decided to stop talking to me. And at this point, point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my roommate and I have lived together for 6 months along with a third roommate, and we become good friends. We attend a Canadian university. I was born here, while she currently is on student visa from India. Now, her boyfriend recently was offered a very cool opportunity to attend an academic conference in the States over the March break. It is a big deal that he was asked to attend, and the school will pay for his travel and accommodations. When he told her about this opportunity, he offered to split her plane ticket and she could stay in the hotel with him. So basically, he offered her 4 days in the States for the price of half a ticket, a hotel, and meals being covered. Well, here's the issue. She cannot legally enter the United States. And sure, technically she could, but she would need a visitor's visa, which is something that she would not be able to obtain in time for the trip. Because she is on a student visa, she is not allowed to cross the border. So now she's very upset that, for one, she's missing out on a great opportunity, and secondly, her plans with her boyfriend are being changed. However, last night things reached a bit of a boiling point. It's been 2 weeks of her dragging her feet and complaining about her boyfriend's trip. And while at first we were both supportive, both me and my other roommate are starting to get a bit annoyed at the situation. Specifically, she makes a lot of remarks about it not being fair that I'm allowed to travel wherever I like, with comments I assume weren't being serious until she explained to me that she genuinely thinks it isn't fair. Once she started complaining about my last-minute United States trip that is coming up, namely the road trip to the States that my boyfriend and I decided to take on a whim, I then started getting very annoyed. In the heat of the moment, I snapped. I then pointed out to her that she chose to come to Canada on a student visa, knowing the conditions of her being here. Well, she didn't take too well to that and hasn't really spoken to me all day. I do feel bad that I snapped at her, but on the other hand, if she had chosen a different country or stayed in her home, she would be free to travel as she pleases. I don't know a whole lot about the immigration system or how unfair it might be, but she made the decision to come here, and in doing so, her right to enter the United States. Now, for context, she has told me quite a bit about her choice to study in Canada. She says that she got bored after her bachelor's degree and applied to the first Canadian university she found online, and she's not even leaving like an unsafe household or an area. So seriously, am I the jerk for saying what I did to my roommate? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, your roommate sounds super obnoxious. I can understand them complaining to a point, but seriously, the fact that they try to drag you into this, in my opinion, is not fair. And just like anybody else, I would be very sympathetic to her situation if she was at least reasonable about this. Because sure, she's missing out on a cool trip with her boyfriend, and I understand why she would be upset about that. I really think anyone would understand where she's coming from, but I think in this scenario, it's probably not about what she said, but probably the way that she said it. Because I'm imagining this went from like mild annoyance to absolutely unbearable within minutes. Even more to the point of her being like, wow, you get to go to the United States, but I can't. What's the deal with that? Like, I can see why that would be the breaking point and why you would be like, wait a second, this is so stupid. How am I at fault for you not going to the United States? Like, she does know that she chose to come to Canada, right? Like, seriously, this is not your fault, and the fact that she's trying to make it your fault or somehow spin you into all of this is just so weird. So no, I don't blame you for saying what you did, because it really seems like she was trying to make you feel bad about her situation, and that, in my opinion, is absolutely not fair. My obnoxious neighbor is constantly slamming the doors to a community lounge, as she feels the need to slam them as hard as possible just to make sure they close. So I decided to get some petty revenge by sabotaging the doors in such a way that they would only close if she gently closed them, resulting in this lady slamming them for minutes on end, never quite catching on exactly why it's not working. And I honestly find this entire situation hilarious, and I'm so glad that I pranked her. Here's what happened. So I live in a place where the lounge has 2 doors, both with dodgy latches. My landlord's mom, who seems to have nothing better to do with her days than lounge on the sofa all day watching tacky soap operas, has this absolutely infuriating ritual. Every time she re-enters the room, she insists the doors need to be fully shut. So she slams each door repeatedly until they latch shut. Now, what's the problem, you might be asking? Slamming one door almost always makes the other one pop open because of the air pressure. Now, instead of figuring this out, she'll go back and forth slamming one door and then the other, sometimes multiple times, until they both magically stay shut. This can go on for upwards of 10 to 15 minutes, and this is at all hours of the day and night. To make things even worse, the main door she uses to exit the room and participate in her slamming Olympics is the furthest one away from her beloved sofa. So every failed attempt means that she's trekking back and forth like it's a marathon. One day, after enduring this nonsense for far too long, I decided to have a little bit of fun. I partially filled the door latches with hot glue, just enough so that they don't latch properly unless you really gently but firmly press the door into the frame until it clicks. And trust me, the word gentle is not in this woman's vocabulary. Now, every time she slams slams one door, it's even easier for the other one to pop open at the slightest air pressure change. And here's where the real fun begins. Once she finally finished her door slamming ritual and flopped back onto the sofa, I wait about a minute, I crack open the door to create a minor change in the air pressure, and I listen to the chaos unfold as the door springs open again. Well, cue her exacerbated grunt, stomping back up, and starting the whole exhausting process all over again. Now, what's the cherry on top of this story? She hasn't figured out how to use playback apps for her soap operas. So, every time she's up slamming doors, she's missing bits of her shows. At this point, her day is less about lounging and more about managing her never-ending door drama. And I'm absolutely living it. And sure, the slamming is annoying, but watching her waste her time turning into a door-wrangling gladiator, in my opinion, is absolutely worth it. Okay, I love this for so many reasons. For starters, this is super petty and I love it. I mean, you don't take the traditional route of complaining about her or anything like that. You don't even bother talking to the landlord because you know it's his mom and they're not going to do anything about it. So I love how you sabotage this door and essentially ruined her experience of watching TV. So yeah, I find this funny and I think this is a great way to get back at somebody, because if she's going to disturb everybody in the general area with her slamming these stupid doors, then she better get used to doing that for minutes on end, because from the sounds of it, I don't think she'll ever figure out exactly why they're not closing. My parents care way too much about the location of my first job after college, as they've desperately tried to convince me that I need to stay in state, despite my career demanding that I move out of state if I want to survive. And at this point, I'm honestly so confused and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, one piece of annoying and honestly stupid advice that my parents have given me throughout my college career is that the location of my interns and my first job after college should be a priority. For context, I'm from the suburbs of Massachusetts, and I will be working in big tech in New York City after I graduate from college this spring. This is at arguably the most prestigious company in the field. Now, as a side note, I will use terms like mid-tier company and top company, not to sound pretentious, but just to give context on the situation. Throughout college, my parents would insist that I find jobs in Massachusetts. The only reason they're fine with most places on the East Coast is because it's not that far from home. However, if it was something like California, they see that as a significant negative. Honestly, although I've never really had too much of a problem with location of my internships and my jobs, this advice affected my mentality throughout college. During my freshman and sophomore year, instead of applying anywhere and everywhere, I would not apply to internships far away because I was subconsciously thinking of what would please my parents. Even junior year, I applied to internships out of state, but if asked what I prefer, I would always mention East Coast, and even had the mindset that a job in Massachusetts would be ideal. I even told a recruiter in an interview once that location was a top priority, simply because I prefer to be close to my family, even though this was really only because of my parents. For my junior year internship, all my internship offers were out of state, so it didn't matter. My internship was at a top company. However, I think since I wasn't used to advocating for myself against my parents, if I got an internship at a less recognized company in Massachusetts, my parents might have convinced me to take the latter internship because of location, even though the former was so much better for my career. Now, I know this because during my sophomore year, I worked at a good defense contractor, which was very good for a sophomore internship. However, the internship is definitely not as good as a big tech internship for junior summer. When I got an offer at a big tech company, my dad suggested that I try to see if I can get a better offer at the defense contractor. Although you can negotiate, it's clear that the defense contractor can't compete with a big tech company, especially in terms of salary, and my dad knows that. And my internship salary was not the thing that mattered. Although the contractor provides a good salary for new graduates, the big tech company provides a much better salary, even accounting for cost of living. The only reason my parents were even suggesting to still consider the contractor is purely because of location, which is terrible advice. Also, it wasn't even just about the salary. The specific big tech companies I got offers from are way better for career growth than the defense contractor. The only thing that was supposedly better about the contractor was location, which I don't even think is crucial in most cases for new graduates. It's really only now that I realize the location of the first job shouldn't be the main priority, especially if it's in a big tech hub like New York or California. If the only option at my company was to work in California, I would have still advocated against my parents to take it over a worse offer in a close location, even if the latter offer was still decent. My parents honestly expect me to sacrifice what's optimal for my early career for their comfort and me being close to home, which is honestly so stupid. When I have a conversation about this subject with my parents, their argument will be, well, what if there was a job that pays the same in Massachusetts? And they're talking about a hypothetical job in Massachusetts for new graduates that pays similar similarly as the top company I'll be working at, I mean, that just doesn't even exist in the first place. And sure, there's obviously times where it makes sense to make these sacrifices, like if you have a kid or a family, but I'm literally a college graduate. I don't understand how my parents think that it should be a priority. Obviously, I think it is reasonable to make it a consideration if you have multiple competing offers in your hand, but making it my main priority as a college senior who's searching for jobs is just completely ridiculous. And the fact that my parents keep insisting is honestly so annoying. I'm glad I ended up muting this advice while job hunting later in college, because it honestly could have damaged my early career. And this may sound like a rant, but I'm honestly wondering if anyone's had a similar experience and how you handled it or would have handled it in the future, because at this point, I don't know what to do. Yes, I have to 100% agree with the original poster here, especially with the field that it sounds like they're going into. Because here's the facts. Your parents only want you to stick around because they want you to stay close to them. They want their kid to be close by so that they can still have a connection with you locally. And it's like, sure, if you had a different career plan, then maybe that might work. But it really sounds like you need to be in a big city to make this work. So for them to literally be like, oh, don't find a job out of state, stay in Massachusetts. Like, that is really selfish and so annoying. And I think if I was in your shoes, I would feel the same way about like wanting to find a job that makes sense. So yeah, I think you're doing it right, and I think you've got this figured out really well. Because if you had followed your parents' advice, I really do agree with you in saying that this would have stifled your career in a major way. My entitled brother is demanding that I give him some money I made off of crypto after he says that he's the reason I made that money, as he suggested that I invest in that currency from the very beginning. But despite the fact that he literally gave me $0 when it comes to making this investment, he's now saying that I should be kissing his feet and that I am so selfish for not handing over any of my money. Because at this point, I feel very confused and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm looking to get an opinion on this little thing going on with my brother. A few months back, he was begging me into buying a specific cryptocurrency. He has been telling me for years, but it hasn't had any movement, and I have been invested in crypto for a while now. So naturally, I only put my money in places where I believe there is an opportunity to make money. Anyways, I decided to sell another cryptocurrency, and I moved some money to the one that he was telling me to buy. Well, a couple of months have passed, and now that crypto token has gone up around 7 times the amount from the initial point that I bought. My brother and I have always had a good relationship for the most part, and have shared our finances regarding the money that we've made and lost, as well as our portfolio holdings. Now that this crypto has gone up, he acts as if it was his doing that I've made money, and feels entitled to some of the profits that I have made. He says things like, "You should be kissing my feet. You're so selfish," all for me not handing him any money. Mind you, there was zero, and I mean zero, of his money involved into this investment. All of it was mine. He just feels like because he told me at a time before the investment would later go up, that he is the one that told me that this was going to go up, that he somehow feels that I owe him. I need genuine advice from all angles here. I don't want to ruin our relationship since he is my brother, and I have tried talking to him, but he gets so upset when I mention that I did not make the decision because of him and that none of his money was involved. So why would he be upset at me that I made money? What should I do? Okay, first off, I want to say your brother is not the smartest person in the world, because if he really thought this was going to go up, then he should have bought some of the crypto himself. Like, seriously, why would he go to you and be like, "Man, you've got to buy into this. You've got to do it. Do it, man. It's going to go up." And then not invest in that same currency that he was like, "Oh, this might go up, so I should get into it." Like, what gives him the right to be like, "Wow, you made money? Congratulations. That's my consulting fee." It's like, what are we talking about? This is crazy in my opinion. So if he really wants a cut out of this and is like, "Oh yeah, I told you about it, so you should give me money," would he then owe you money if that currency went down the drain? Because I'm pretty sure if you went to him and said, "Hey, this currency crashed, you owe me like $7,000, he would run away so quick and be like, "Well, that's your money, man. I don't have anything to do with it. Sorry, bro." So seriously, this is so ridiculous. You do not owe this guy a single penny. And the fact that he's trying to guilt trip you in this scenario, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for getting the highest grade on a test out of everybody in my class? Because right now, apparently, everybody's upset with me. And right now, I'm honestly feeling very confused and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So for a bit of background, I go to a high school with an advanced science program for freshmen, and my test grades haven't even been that good since I have never studied before and never needed to before. But fortunately, now I do. So I studied and I managed to get a 97. And apparently, my test grade is the best grade for that test in both sections of that course. Now, I did not know this at the time. So when I said I got a 97 after someone asked me what I got, everybody got really pissed off at me. I also have extreme ADHD and autism. so reading the room is almost impossible for me. At the end of class, I asked one of my friends, let's call him Neil for the sake of the story, wanting to know why everybody's upset. He responded by saying, "You know why everyone's upset," to which I responded and said, "Actually, I don't. Well, since everyone usually gets higher grades than me, I assumed that everyone else got like 100% or something like that. But as we were leaving to go to the gym, a girl who we will call Jill was crying and I didn't know why. I later learned from my best friend who we will call Sam that he heard a kid in one of the two sections got a 40%. And our theory is that it was this girl that was crying. So Neil went over to try and make her feel better. Now, here's the thing. I've been bullied since I was 7 years old. So I know when people hate me, even though they're not admitting it. And in that moment, I got major feelings of hate from everybody. But in the past, everyone always brags about their grades, even when they know I got a grade that I was not happy with. So am I the jerk for getting a better grade than my classmates? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. These people suck. You mean to tell me that they're literally trying to make you feel bad all because you did better than them? Like, what is going on right now? How is that your fault? First of all, and I really mean this, anyone who's trying to come at you and be like, wow, I can't believe you got a higher grade than the rest of us, and they for some reason are trying to make you feel bad for getting a good grade, those are not good people. I would even be hesitant to be like, oh yeah, these are my friends, because no friend that I know of would ever treat me like this if I got a better grade than them. And the double standard here is crazy to me. They really will be like, oh yeah, we can brag about our grade, but the second you get a higher grade, that's not allowed. It's like, wait a second, so you can brag about it, but I can't, even though you didn't brag about it in this story? Someone literally just asked you and you're like, yeah, I got a 97. And then they're gonna sit there and almost act like, wow, how could you do that to us? It's like, what are we talking about here? Like, what is going on? So no, of course you're not the jerk. These people suck forever trying to make you feel bad about succeeding. And I know for a fact that if I was in your shoes, I would continue to study hard and do the best that I can. Because these people are simply jealous of the fact that you did better than them on this one test. An entitled manager refuses to return me a product that he sold me that was very defective, as this cost me well over $350. So I decided to get petty by bringing my credit card company into the mix, forcing these people to get off their butts and actually do something about the product that they sold me. And I honestly feel so good at the way that I got back at them. Here's what happened. So this happened mid-2020 during COVID. Now, as a farmer, I can't take a break from anything due to the pandemic, although I still had to deal with local and state laws, such as wearing a mask in stores and keeping 6 feet apart. I was getting my combine harvester cleaned up and practically ready to start harvesting the wheats. Now, the wheat, when planted in the late fall or early winter, are meant to be harvested by the late summer, and the window to harvest them can be mere weeks. Anyways, I noticed the harvester was not starting up, and when I checked, the battery wasn't holding any charge. The trickle charger ran for a few days, and the battery remained well below the minimum required power. I guess the cold winter may have sapped the battery, and it was already old. So I went to a local farming store to get a new battery, and these batteries are $350 for my John Deere harvester. So yeah, they're not cheap. They didn't take the old one for core exchange, as returns were temporarily banned, but I could take it later and get the core fee back. Well, I got it in check, and after a click, I heard nothing. When I checked the battery, it was deader than a doornail. The trickle charger couldn't detect the battery. That seemed to indicate there's a full open, like a misconnection inside, or a few damaged lead plates. So back to the store I go. It should be a simple straight exchange, right? Well, it wasn't. The state of Michigan put in a temporary ban on returns to prevent people from getting too close to employees or sharing COVID-contaminated items. So unfortunately, the only option the store offered was another $350 battery. The store policy had 2 weeks limit to return batteries for exchange and absolutely no refund. With the temporary law, I couldn't exchange it right that time. I asked if they could sell it now and issue a refund on the dead battery later when the restriction is lifted, and they said no. I can't wait until the ban is lifted to exchange the dud, as my unharvested crop would be ruined if the ban remained well into winter. At this point, I involved my credit card company because I was getting screwed out of $350 with a dead battery, no exchange allowed, and no refund later. I ended up in a three-way call for some time with my credit card, bank, and the store. They tried to find compromises like loading me another combine harvester. When I told them what model and size mine is and they looked it up, they only had a tractor that was basically useless, meaning that renting from another place would be the only option. Well, after a heart attack inducing $75 per hour, I told them there was 1,100 acres to be farmed with an average of 30 hours to clear it at best. They then suggested sending some local employees to help hand gather wheat. So I said to them, sir, do you know how much 1,100 acres of wheat is? It's roughly 1 3/4 square miles, and all of those have to be gathered in a few weeks. I would need at a minimum a few hundred people hand cutting all the wheat, thresh them all, and dump the wheat into the trucks. All of your employees might be able to do 1 acre a day, but not finish the full thing in a few weeks. And here's the thing, a few hundred people doing it for a few weeks at standard wage would far exceed the cost of one harvester rental for a few days, and be well within the cost of a used similar size harvester. In fact, a team of just 5 employees doing 1 acre a day would end up finishing in 3 years, with most of the wheat being rejected for being too old, rotten, and moldy. Now, we were still back on the battery. The store pointed out that state law prohibited return and suggested I wait to return the exchange. But I said I can't wait for when I can exchange the battery, as it may be too late to harvest my wheat. The credit card company reminded them they had an obligation to sell working merchandise, and they need to make an exception to either exchange for another now or allow defective battery return for full refund when returns are allowed. Well, the store said no refund of returned batteries for any reason and refused to allow an exchange due to the law. So these were my options. Either exchange it now, make an exception and allow refund later, pay for a rental combine harvester out of their own pocket, or send a few hundred employees on their dime. And obviously the answer to all of that was no. Ultimately, the credit card company ruled in my favor, and the store was told they can come and pick up the dead battery anytime for the return. In the end, I got a new battery from a different store and have never gone back to the first one ever since. Now, the dead battery and the original old battery have been sitting in my barn for about 4.5 years now. I sent them a reminder when Michigan lifted the return ban and a few months later. And since it is considered abandonment after they ignored my last reminder, maybe I'll send it to someone to try and rebuild it. If it's not rebuildable, I can still take both somewhere and get some money out of it. So if the employee of this store is reading this and remembers this situation, this will be your last chance to come in and pick up your stupid battery. But be sure to bring help and a broom. The battery is around 120 pounds with about 20 pounds of dust all on the top of it. My God, the people who run that store are idiots. Are they really willing to go through all these other measures just to make sure they don't give you a battery instead of just giving you the battery straight up? First off, it would have been so simple to be like, okay, here you go. Like, just say screw the rules and exchange it, and then no one has to know the wiser. Sure, it might be against the law, but at the end of the day, this is something that you guys caused. You sold a defective battery. Like, are you kidding me right now? There's got to be some exception to the rule. And did they really say, oh, you could harvest it by hand? Like, are you kidding me? What is going on right now? That's not gonna work. Like, this guy's a complete idiot. The fact that he would make that kind of assumption and be like, oh yeah, this could happen. You could do this. It's like, no, you can't. You would need a few hundred people just to get that done. Not to mention renting out an entirely new harvester. Like, just give him the battery. It's cheaper that way. So good for you for taking the steps to make sure these people didn't get away with this garbage, because the way they treated you was absolutely insane. Entitled customers are constantly bothering me, as they literally have zero common sense in everything that they do, leaving me wondering how they function on a daily basis. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work in a grocery store, and earlier today I was collecting baskets from the front to take back to the entrance, and you have to go through the produce section to get there. When I'm around 15 feet from the door, this guy who looked to be in his 40s or 50s walks in and immediately turns to the side and drops a handful of garbage into one of the stacks of baskets already by the door, and then makes his way into the store. Now, I have no problem with being confrontational when I need to be, but I hate it, so I wasn't going to say anything, but I was picking up his trash, so I thought to myself, you know what, screw it. I turned around to face the guy who was still pretty close to me, and I say to him, hey sir, don't throw your garbage here, there's a bin right there. And I then point to the garbage bin, which I kid you not is literally 2 steps to the side. Well, he looks taken aback, and then starts nervously laughing and apologizing, saying that he didn't see the bin, but I was too tired to engage any further, so I just said, okay, and I turned around to continue putting the baskets away. But like, seriously, even if you didn't see the bin, why on earth would you just dump your trash into the baskets? Well, not even 2 minutes later, when I was done, this guy was still there looking for some kind of squash, and he sees me walking away and gets my attention to ask me something. He looks at me and says,
I've never eaten this before. How do you cook it?
I looked at him and I said, I don't know, I've never had it either. He then looked at me confused and said,
Oh, what? You don't know how to cook it?
And at this point, I was dumbfounded, so I just said no, and then I started to walk away from him. But as I'm doing so, I hear him turn to another customer and ask them. And it's like, buddy, Google is free. Why don't you use that instead of bothering people? People assuming that me or one of my coworkers know every little detail about different products happens a lot more often than you would think. And it baffles me every time they get this confused look on their face when I tell them I have no idea how to cook or use whatever they're talking about. Because clearly with some people, common sense is just not a strong suit. Okay, if I was in this scenario, I would not even care about the food he was asking about. If he's trying to figure out how to cook some squash, I would be like, yeah, whatever. But it's the fact that he dropped his trash in the baskets I was bringing into the store. Like, that would have driven me crazy. If you don't have some kind of like robot to help you push the those carts along, those carts can be very obnoxious to push. So for that guy to walk up and put trash in the basket after you've gone through all the trouble of bringing it back in, like that is so annoying, and I don't blame you in the slightest for getting frustrated. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for pulling back and planning to cut contact with my friends after they went on vacation to a city without me that I always wanted to go to? Because right now there's a massive divide between us, and at this point I don't know what to do. I'm an 18-year-old female, and I have two female best friends who we will call Lindsay and Jessica. Those are not their real names. We've basically been friends since the 5th grade. Now, I'm pretty introverted and hard to trust due to personal stuff, so I don't have a lot of very close friends, meaning that I only have those two. Well, or so I thought. I got my dream vacation for my 18th birthday and spent almost 2 weeks away during the summer holidays. My friend knew this loosely, and at some point during the holidays, Lindsay asked me when I was going to be away. Well, a few weeks later, my mother asked me if I was joining Lindsay and Jessica on their vacation. Now, I didn't know anything about that, but apparently they were going to a city that I love, and they knew that I love that city. I confronted Lindsay about it, and she said she didn't bother since I would be away on my dream vacation, and I would not have come along even if they asked me. I was mostly upset that they didn't communicate it to me at all, and it felt like they were going behind my back. A few days later, we wanted to take the same subway to a school event, and I missed the train. And again, they didn't even think to wait for me at all, and they walked from the subway to the event without thinking about me. They do this a lot, by the way. I tend to wait for them for stuff and make an effort to spend time with them, but they rarely ask me to meet up with the two of them. They meet up to go shopping together all the time. I see their snaps. During COVID, Lindsay and I met up outside, and we walked to Jessica's house to meet up with her too. And later, I met up with Jessica to walk to Lindsay's house and meet up with her too, because I thought it was a cute thing to do amongst friends. But they never bothered to do the same with me. So yes, I was hurt. I found out that almost all my friends were going to that city together. I was really hurt, so I decided to not talk to the two of them for a while, and they didn't even make any effort to reach out to me at all for almost 4 weeks. During that time, I still had contact with them, as we did share classes and have extracurricular activities together, so I will admit that I was a bit of a jerk to them, and I was pretty passive-aggressive. After 4 weeks, I reached out to Lindsay because I couldn't bear it anymore, and she said they felt I was being unreasonable and cruel. Now, I apologized to make the peace, but she didn't really do that. When I went to talk to Jessica, she asked me, "Are we talking to each other again?" And she said this in a really mean tone of voice. I was in a right mind to tell her no and just leave, but I didn't. Later, she said I was overreacting and being childish, so she didn't see a point in talking to me. But now, the friendship is so uneasy at best, and I don't think I can forgive them and keep up the friendship after we graduate. I've also been a bit colder to the both of them. For context, I'm Arrow Ace, and I don't have a dividing line between platonic and romantic feelings, so my hurt might be overreacting somewhat, and I understand that, but it doesn't change how I feel. So am I the jerk for the way things have gone down? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, it doesn't sound like you, Lindsay, and Jessica are good friends at all, because based on what you're describing, it sounds like you're the third wheel. And sure, you probably don't want to hear that, but it just kind of seems that way. And that's really not fair to you. Like, you really do deserve friends who want you around and who value your time and attention. So the fact that these people are just like, "Oh yeah, whatever, you're overreacting all because we excluded you again." It's like, that's really what's going on here. They're excluding you and they're not involving you in stuff that they're doing. So no, I don't blame you if you do want to cut them off as friends, but I think there might be some kind of way of making things right if they are reasonable human beings in general. So hopefully things do work out, but if they don't, I hope you find better friends than this, because what you described honestly sounds awful. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that she is insane for not teaching her daughter English, because she claims that they won't be needing it as they plan on moving back to Sweden at some point in the future? But right now, my parents are saying that I went a little bit too far and that I might be the jerk in this situation. So at this point, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female, and my family is originally from Sweden. My sister, who we will call Kristen, is 30 years old and was born in Sweden and was raised speaking Swedish and English. She and my parents came to the United States when she was 10 years old, and I was born not long afterwards. I was raised only speaking English. My parents did not bother having me learn Swedish because it isn't a widely spoken language where we live. And in fact, when I was little, they had a rule that Kristen could only talk to me in English. And they did this because they didn't want to hinder me being able to communicate with my peers. Now, I visited Sweden maybe twice when I was really little, and I don't have any recollections. Kristen, however, has a lot of fond memories from her childhood. Since she's moved out, she has regularly visited Sweden. She has been married to her husband, who we will call Eric, for about 3 years now, and Eric is also from Sweden and came to visit the United States in his early 20s. Eric was also raised speaking Swedish Swedish and English, but is more comfortable talking in Swedish. They also have a daughter that we will call Elsa, who is 18 months old and is learning to talk. When they came over for Christmas dinner, I tried to talk to Elsa, but Kristen told me that I can only talk to Elsa in Swedish but not English. Now, I thought she was raising Elsa to speak both Swedish and English, but she told me that they are not going to bother teaching her English. Well, I asked why, and Kristen told me that they want Elsa to be connected to her heritage, and also because they plan on eventually moving back to Sweden. I asked if she had any idea as to when they will be moving, and she said it could be 1 year or even 10 years. I then told Kristen that she is doing Elsa a big disservice by not teaching her English, but she told me that it won't be an issue, as she'll apparently learn it when she goes to kindergarten. I then said that I can understand wanting Elsa to know Swedish, and if they had any immediate plans to move back to Sweden, then I could understand prioritizing Swedish over English. But since they don't have any immediate plans to move back there, she should learn both languages now so she can communicate with her English-speaking relatives in the United States, as well as her peers and teachers when she goes to school. I said that not teaching Elsa any English at all was insane. Well, when I said that, Kristen got mad at me and told me that I'm being xenophobic. I told her this would not be an issue if Elsa speaks English too, but because almost nobody around here speaks Swedish, she is hindering her daughter. She said that it's possible that by the time Elsa is ready to start school, they might have moved back to Sweden. Now, my parents are mostly on my side, but say that they understand why she's doing this, and that I was being harsh by saying that it was insane for not teaching her English, and that I should be more understanding. But I feel it's equally harsh for her to say that I'm xenophobic. I think it's great to be multilingual, but one needs to be able to communicate with the majority of the people where they live. But now I'm starting to feel like maybe I was too harsh, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first off, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because what your sister is doing really is stupid. Like, why would you not actively try to teach your kid English? She's gonna go into kindergarten speaking Swedish, and then nobody's gonna be able to talk to her. And granted, there's probably a chance she'll learn just by being in an English-speaking country, so there might be some kind of like exposure aspect to this where it's like, okay, she learned it just by living in the culture, but that is not a risk I would be willing to take. But they're also operating under the assumption that they might move back to Sweden in the future, maybe. And they're not even giving any kind of like clear timeline as to when that might happen if they want to do that. So why not just teach both languages? It wouldn't be that hard to have like both Swedish and English being taught in the house. So yeah, I'm 100% on your side, and I think your parents are idiots for trying to be like, wow, you need to be more understanding, because not teaching their kid English is really going to be giving her a disservice. And when things go poorly with this, those parents will have no one else to blame except for themselves. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and also please subscribe to Am I the Genius? I think you're gonna love what they're making over there. It's a great channel and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.